In today's comprehensive tutorial, we are going to be building a real app from scratch. That we're going to be building today is an Airbnb clone. So think of something where you need to search for apartments, you need to book apartments, you need to maybe leave a review, look at your trips, look on the map. All that stuff we're going to be covering in today's video. Now, this comprehensive app building tutorial is sponsored to you by Mastering FlutterFlow, which is my comprehensive FlutterFlow training that helps you to go from zero to hero, where you learn FlutterFlow, which is the easiest and one of the most powerful no-code tools out there in order to build apps without code. When you join our comprehensive training, not only will you get access to easily digestible video modules that cover a specific topic when it comes to building apps, but you'll also get access to our private Discord community where you can ask any questions and we will help you with any issues when it comes to building apps. Additionally, if you're interested in viewing and or cloning the app that I'm about to build in today's video, you will be able to do so from our amazing Patreon community. And you can learn more about our amazing Patreon community using the link in the description below. So sit back and enjoy the app building tutorial. All right, so here we got the pages. I basically took the screenshots of the pages that we're going to be building for the app. Okay, so we have the home page here, and the home page is your typical list view. So when you go onto Airbnb, you have basically a bunch of apartments in your area. So here we're seeing a bunch of places. This is like a castle, what looks to be, or like a big house for $900 a night. And then there's a bunch of other listings. And you also have a map view right here so that you could switch on. So you can click this and you can see all the apartments on the map here. Now, what's important to notice here is that apart from the list view, we also have different things happening here. So you have a search bar here that you can search. You have different things that you can click on. So this is like a filter. So if you're looking for amazing pools, you can click here, cabins, amazing views, etc., etc. So it's just a bunch of different filters for the apartments. This is kind of important to understand if you're going to be building this functionality. You also have this display total price, includes all fees before taxes, things like that. Let's talk about this filtering capability. So if we scroll down, I have these screenshots of this filter. Okay, so this filter has like three parts. You can search where to, so these are different places. So if you type the name, it's going to do autocomplete by the city. You also have the when, right? So where, when, and who. And this is not a filter. This is just, well, actually, this is a filter. All of these are filters because maybe some apartments, you're traveling with 5 people, they only accept 2 people. So if you put like 5 people, you're not going to see apartments that only accept maybe 2 people maximum. So these are all filters because an apartment can be in a specific location. It can only be available at a specific date and time. And then it can only accommodate, X amount of people, right? So maybe you're traveling with kids that they might not, kids friendly or whatever. They might not allow it, right? So we have these 3 filters and I kind of expanded each part. So here we have the main part here, the where to part. We have the calendar for the when part, and then we have the other filters for the who is coming. So we have adults, children, infants, and then pets. So yeah, all of these, they could play a role in terms of showing you which apartments are available, right? Because, maybe some apartments don't want pets. So they might, so if you select you're traveling with a pet, they might be filtered out, okay? And here you also have kind of the type of place. You can pick all types of rooms or homes. This is an important filter. And then they're doing something fancy. They're essentially showing you the distribution and the prices. So you can actually list the prices here. I don't know if I have that. Yeah, I don't have that. But essentially this box right here is the from right? How much, the from filter and the to filter. So this is important as well, right? Because, if you're traveling somewhere expensive and you only want to spend 50 bucks a night or 30 bucks a night, and they start at, 200 bucks a night, obviously, it's going to be filtered out. So all of this is very, very important. We definitely have to build it. But let's talk about some of the other things and then we'll kind of get back to it. So we talked about the front page. Next, let's talk about these detail views. Okay, so if you find an apartment, so let's say you're browsing and you click here and you like what you see, you're going to be showing a screen like this. This is your first kind of detail page. Well, the first and only detail page. And here you're going to see, the image, the title, how many reviews, the location, entire home hosted by Airbnb. So entire home and room, the type, how many guests, how many bedrooms, beds, 3 baths. So these are all characteristics of the apartment that we're looking at, right? And then some amenities, right? Or some important things to know. Dedicated workspace, this is good. Self check-in, experience host. But yeah, for 900 bucks a night, I would hope I get some of these things, right? Next, if you click on reserve, if you click this button, you're going to be redirected to the screen where essentially you'll have to confirm, right? You're going to see everything that, you were searching for, let's say these dates initially here. You're going to see those dates. You're going to see how many guests that you specified back here, a couple of other things, and then price details. And then this is the second half of the screen where you have cancellation policy, ground rules, etc., etc. Terms of service, and then request to book. So if you do request to book, one of two things is going to happen. Either, your request is going to be forwarded to the owner, and if the owner accepts, you're good to go, or it's going to be accepted immediately. So I noticed lately in some cases, it's accepted immediately. You don't have to wait for the owner. I don't really know how it works. I guess the owner sets something on their end, but that's really the flow. And this thing here, so yeah, this is the second part of this, right? So this detail page is lots of things happening. You have, what this place offers. These are these things right here. Actually, this is a separate part. This is kind of the main ones. And then you have some other thing, lake access, kitchen, Wi-Fi, dedicated workspace, etc. And then you have all 57 amenities. So these are the amenities. And then you also have a map. So you can see approximately where it is, right? They don't give the exact address, but approximately. So this right here is the booking flow. And then we have kind of the detail flow, the map view, and the detail view. But if you scroll down, we have more right here, right? So these things appear at the bottom, right? And so these things here are your tabs. So if you think about it, this whole thing is just the Explore tab, but there are actually 5 tabs. So if we scroll down, if you go to wish list, you are going to see different apartments that you saved in a particular wish list. So I have a couple of wish lists here, and I have some apartments saved here. Next, we have trips. These are the trips that the user has taken. And this includes their past trips, their current trips, the trip that they're on right now, as well as their future trips as well. So no trips booked yet. You can start searching. And then for the inbox, we have full featured chat, right? So you can actually chat with the person after they've accepted your request. So after you two connected, you have that future trip. You can start chatting with them, right? Maybe you want to confirm something, double check on something, and then when you check in, you can ask them questions, etc., etc. And then last but not least, we have the profile page, and here is basically a bunch of links to more pages. So you can click here, show your profile, personal info, payments and payouts, etc., etc., etc. And that's all for now. That's kind of the main flows. Now, there are a couple of things that you need to do when you are browsing the flows, right? Or building just about any app. At least that is what I do. The first thing that I do is, as I'm going over through each of the pages, I'm trying to figure out the complexity of the app, right? So a list view is simple, right? you know, obviously if you're just starting out, right, the list view is going to be a big deal for you. But as you gain more experience, you'll be able to break this down into various kind of components or subsystems and things like that. So this is just a list view, very simple. This is a filter, right? Total price, right? This controls how we are displaying it. This is also very simple. Okay, this is also very simple because for each listing you have different prices, and then you have a field total price. So if you click here, it affects, you know, which list which, you know, ultimate price you're going to be displaying, which is, this could be set as a page variable or an app state, page state variable or an app state variable if you're doing something like this in FlutterFlow. So this is also relatively simple. Next, we have these amenities, right? So if you click here, it's going to filter just the rooms, or if you click here, it's going to filter just the cabins. This is also a subsystem. This is also a feature. Okay, so you have to understand the complexity. This is not complex. This is not very, very complex to do. And then we have the search filter, and the search is kind of, I would say, intermediate complexity, because in FlutterFlow it's a little bit of a pain to do. But you know, it's doable. I've done it before. If you've never done it before, you're gonna see how to do it. But if you've done it before, it's gonna be very, very straightforward. I think one complex thing here is this filter, right? There's lots of things happening here, and so I don't know if we're gonna do it exactly how it's here, but we're definitely gonna, you know, we're definitely going to include a lot of this functionality, right? So you have all this like very, very complex filtering that you can filter on different things. So very, very important to keep in mind. And then you have a detail. Then obviously request to book is gonna either book it, so it's gonna charge your payment method, or it's gonna wait for the other person to approve it or not, depending on their settings. Okay. We also have the map view, right? So the map view is another thing, right? You need to understand how to display it using a map. And this is also fairly straightforward in FlutterFlow. Assuming you have all of these stored as coordinates, you can simply load the map view and pass your list of different locations. Very, very simple to do as well. And then what else we have? We have a wish list. So if you click on a listing, you can favorite it and you can save it in a list. Okay, so this is also fairly straightforward to do. Trips, again, you have to, you know, save your trips somewhere, and you have to be able to list them. This thing is you know, fairly complex, right? Because you need a whole chat subsystem here. So if you've never built a chat subsystem or a chat app, you will be spending time building it. But you know, it's something to keep in mind. And then this is fairly straightforward, right? It's your profile page, and a lot of these things are just your settings, essentially. That's kind of what you're doing here. So you have to keep in mind when you're building an app, like, of the complexity level, right? Because, you know, every little thing that you see, you know, this is something you're going to be spending your time and energy on building. So this is a good thing to keep in mind as you are browsing and looking at what kind of app you're building. Apart from the different, you know, features and the subsystems and the different components, is what is going to be the main challenge, right? Where's the algorithm here, right? Because if you think about like the apps that you're going to be building, there's going to be, you know, one or two features that really is gonna, you know, that really makes the app. So in this case, it's going to be, well, at least one of the main features of this app is when you're searching, it's the ability to see, you know, which apartments are available, which are not available. Is that search functionality? That's the thing that immediately hit me, right? So if you scroll down right here, right, we are going to be searching. We need to implement the logic. And so if you want an apartment, let's say from the 12th to the 19th, you need to make sure that that block is open there, right? If you're doing months, if you click on months and you pick an entire month or something like that, you need to make sure that whole thing is you know, that ability that apartment is not booked for the duration of the dates that you are, that you're searching for. That is really kind of the main functionality. Another thing that came to me is the fact that, that the logic where if you're interested in something, you send the request, that person gets the email, they get a response, they get some kind of notification on their end, and they need to approve it or not approve it. So there's that kind of flow. And so you always want to be thinking about these kind of flows, because if you think about this flow, this is just your standard list detail flow. There's nothing crazy complex about it, right? It's relatively straightforward. But the whole logic where, you're searching from date A to date B, and you just want to see those apartments that are not booked on those dates, that is, that's going to take more time to kind of build out and to test and to launch than your basic detail flow. So keep that in mind as you are, starting to kind of think about how you're going to be developing the app. The next thing I want to show you is the document model, right? And this is our data model that we're going to be structuring the app. And this is important also to kind of think about before you're building the app, obviously, because while, during the app building process, you may make some changes here and there. The fact of the matter is that you kind of want to nail down, the core of it before you start building the app. So what we have here is two top-level collections. And so, for instance, with users is going to have a bookings sub-collection. So all their past, present, and future bookings, as well as their favorites, right? So we're going to be storing their favorites as a list of ref IDs, so like place ID, place reference IDs. And then we have the places. So this should be plural, right? So all you want to do all your collections, sub-collections as plural to keep things consistent, right? So we have places, and we have the type of place, whether it's room or apartment. We have the amenities, and I'm not sure how I'm going to store it yet. Maybe this is going to be a one field as an array, right? So like how many things does it have? That's probably a good idea as a field that's going to store a list of strings, and that way we can say workstation, workplace, Lakeview, etc., etc. That could be on this. Next, we have the owner, which is a ref ID that's going to link back to users. We need to know who is the person that's listing this place. And then we have a reviews sub-collection, right? And this reviews sub-collection is going to start out with two fields on each of the documents in the sub-collection, and the first field is going to be rating. So you can rate it from, let's say, 1 to 5. And then it's going to be the actual review, which is just text, whether you liked it or not. And that way we can display these reviews in this kind of the main screen. So if you come over here, I don't know where the reviews are being displayed. I think they're on the main detail page. So I think if we scroll down, maybe somewhere here, we can display it. Actually, they're right here. So it says, you see, it says here, one review. If you click here, it's going to go to another page that's on this level, and you're going to see all the reviews and the ratings. So this is important. But this is going to be kind of an aggregate field here. We're going to take all the reviews, we're going to aggregate them, and we're going to display them here. So this is very, very important. Let's see what we have. Let's go back here. And that's about it. So this is our main structure. And obviously, as we start building the app, we might be adding new fields, but I do not foresee changing kind of the main structure of this. I see it being like this. And part of it is because of my experience building other apps. And another part is kind of, that's how I'm seeing things. The user is going to have bookings, they're going to have favorites, and then the places is going to have the type, amenities, owner, that's going to link back to users, review, etc., etc. Because as you are trying to think of your data model, you need to keep in mind this UI. That is why I always start first with the UI, because UI dictates everything. UI is king. We want to start with the UI because that's what users interact with. Then everything else follows. All right, so let's begin by creating our data store. Let's start with the data. So this is our preliminary data model here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Firebase console here, and I'm going to create a new project. So we're going to start from scratch, that I can show you everything that you need to do. I'm going to click on add project, and I'm going to call this Airbnb. I'm going to hit continue. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to hit continue, select my account, create project. We're going to wait a few moments until this finishes here. All right, the project is ready. We're going to click continue. And we've been redirected to our new Firebase project dashboard. So if you click here in this build section, we have various services. Now, Firebase gives you a lot of services that you can use with your app, but typically you're only going to be using few of them. Okay, so for instance, we're going to be using authentication and Firestore database. So we click on Firestore database. What you want to do is you want to set up your database. We're going to create a database here. And now you can do it in production mode or you can do it in test mode. So I'm going to create it in test mode. And when you do it in test mode, essentially you have a limit to how long you have access to the database. Okay, so it sets a default limit for like a month in advance. So we're going to say next, enable. And remember, you can change your rules anytime that you want. The purpose is to give you kind of this save fail. If you forget to change your rules in a month, nobody will have access to the database, including you. So you can change it before that. And plus, you're going to get a bunch of emails when the deadline approaches. So it's all very, very nice. All right, so here we are in our database. So let's go ahead and create a couple of collections to store our documents. So let's take a look. So we have this users collection, which is going to keep the collection of different users, right? Where each user is a document. This collection actually is going to be created for us by FlutterFlow. So we can skip that for now. You're going to see that a little bit later in the video, how that's done. But let's go ahead and create this places collection. Okay, so we're going to come back here, start a collection, and we're going to say places. Next, and now it wants us to create our first document. I'm just going to do ordered ID. And let's think about the field. So we have the type of room, we have the amenities, we have the owner, which is a link back to users, and we have review sub collection and all that. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's give it a name, right? All documents need a name. You're gonna need a name anyway, right? Regardless what kind of collection you're creating. Next, let's give it a location. Okay, we need to give it a location, city, town, etc. Let's also give it a price, and let's say the price is going to be a number. And so this is the rent per night, right? So let's say this property costs 100. And what else do we have? So we have amenities. So amenities, let's call it amenities. And amenities, we are going to make it an array, and then you're going to have an array of strings. So like maybe workplace, mountain view, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and create this first record here. So the name, let's say I'm thinking of an apartment in New York City. So let's say 1 bedroom in NYC. Okay, location is New York. It's 100 per night, and so it's not gonna have a mountain view, but it's gonna have a, I don't know, Empire State Building or a Central Park view, something like this, and it's going to have its own workspace. Okay, so we have a bunch of fields. Let's go ahead and save. And so we've just created one document. Also, we also need to have the images and all that. We're going to do that in a second. Actually, in fact, let's add an image right here while we remember, add a field, and this is going to be the main image. And it's going to be a string to a URL of the image, right, where it's going to be stored. So that is the image right there. That way we can display the image on the detail page as well as on the list view and all that. So this is like the preliminary collection of fields for our places documents. Obviously, there's going to be more fields, but when I get started, like I don't want to do everything right away. I want to start slow, and I want to build this app gradually. Okay, we also going to need some collections, etc., etc. So we have one record, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some more of these records right now, so at least we have something in the database. And for that, you can click here and you can choose one of these options, and that way you have more control over the data. You can manage it. So let's say I click on import export, doesn't really matter. And once you do that, you're going to be redirected to Google Cloud. dashboard interface. And Google Cloud is the service that basically holds your Firestore Firebase. Okay, so all your projects that you've created in Firestore, in Firebase, they're going to be available here. So as you can see, we have this Airbnb. Next, you want to click on data. Okay, and here you can simply click here, and once you're here, you can click here and you can add a similar document, which is really nice, because if you're creating many documents, like in batch, you want to create like a bunch of documents in succession, it's very, very easy to do. So I'm going to create a couple of more ones. So let's say amenities are going to be, I don't know, view Empire State Building view, or like Brooklyn Bridge view. Central Park view. Obviously, it's not going to have a Central Park view. It's going to have a, I don't know, workspace. And New York, New York. And let's say this apartment is 150 a night. Image we don't have yet. We're going to have soon. And I'm just going to say one amazing, one bed, two bed. Let's say two bed in NYC. Okay, so I can save and add another. And so I'm going to add a couple of other ones real quick. All right, so I went ahead and I created 5 documents in the places collection. Okay, they're all in NYC, and they have, they have different amenities. They have, one is a loft, the other one is workplace, Central Park view, etc., etc. Different prices, things like that. Doesn't really matter. So we have 5 places right here, and we don't have a users collection yet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my FlutterFlow app. That way we have the users collection filled up, and we can at least start to build kind of the detail view and the list view and just the basic views, because we have some data here already. So I'm going to log into FlutterFlow right now. We're going to create a brand new app. I'm going to say create blank. And we're going to configure our Firebase. So it needs a Firebase project ID. If you go back to your Firebase, click on this gear icon, project settings. This is your Firebase ID right here. Go back here, paste it. You're going to get an error because we haven't given your access to your Firebase to FlutterFlow. So you need to copy this email. You need to follow these instructions. Go back into your Firebase here, users and permissions. You want to add a new member, email. You want to do editor, add member. Next, you're going to go hit connect again, and it should connect. Now, auto-generate config files. All right, so the files have been generated. You want to enable authentication, and you want to create users collection. So this is where it's going to create the user collection that I talked about just some moments ago. Next thing you want to do is you want to create these pages here. So we need to create a login page, and we need to set up the logged in page. So this is going to be our main list view, where we're just going to show random apartments, or apartments at least where the user might be living in. But we need the login. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go into auth, and I'm going to pick a login page, just like a random page. So this one looks good. I'm going to say, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to call it login create page, and then our logged in page. So for the logged in page, we want a list view that's kind of similar to what we're doing, right? So I think I saw something that could be useful for us. So let's say home, search for home. And what do we have? Well, how about this one? Home list, kind of what we're looking for, right? This is kind of, this is for travel, but this looks like what we need. So I'm going to say use my theme. And I'm just going to say, yeah, home is fine, create page. And now we're going to click on start building. So as a result, we have it configured with Firebase. And we also have the 2 pages that we've just set up. Okay, so this is our list page, main home page. This is our logged in page. So I actually went ahead and I swiped the login page for this one. I really like this kind of 2-tab setup here. So let's take a look. The auth action is not configured correctly. That is because there's no confirm password field. So what we need is we need another password field when you're creating an account. This is this confirmation field. So I'm gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna change this to 2, and now I can configure it. So I'm gonna come in here, open this up, and it needs a second one. We have the second one. Click here. That error is gone. We have the next is this minor issue here. We want the login and we want the home. Okay. All right. So now we have 2 pages here. We have the login page and we have the home page. there's one more thing that we need to do. So if we go back to our Firebase here, we need to configure auth, right? So the same way we've enabled our Firestore database, you want to click on build and you want to click on authentication and you want to get started. You want to enable this because we're going to be using it. So we're going to enable this right here. You also want to enable the sign-in methods you're going to be using. So we're going to enable email and password, and you obviously have access to a lot of these other sign-in methods like Google, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Yahoo, if you want. So we're going to enable this right here. So at least that we have one of them set up. Now we're going to go back to our app and we are going to try running it. Okay, so I'm going to start it up and we should get this login screen where we can create a new account and then use that account to log into the app. So we're going to run this right here. All right, so our app has launched for the first time and we are confronted with a login screen. So because we haven't logged in yet, the app wants us to log in. And obviously we can log in here, but we don't have an account yet. This is a brand new Firebase project. So what we need to do is we need to log in. So I'm going to create an account right now. Now, as I start typing, you can't see my text, and that is because there's a small bug in this template. So we're going to go back, we're going to fix it. So if I select this and I scroll down, we see that the text is of white color, and because the whole thing is white, the background is white, you can't really see the text. So we're going to come here and we're going to choose it as primary text and the password as well. Click here, primary text setting. Okay, so if we go back, actually we need to do it for login as well. So if we scroll down, we have this login, and the login is primary text, so the login is correct, but the create account is not correct. So let's go ahead and do an instant reload on the app right now, just to see our changes. All right, so now if you try typing something, you see it's showing up. So I'm going to create a random account right now, and I'm going to click on get started. All right, so as soon as we create a new account, we are redirected to the second page, which is our home page and the list page. And so here you can kind of see the listings. You have a nice list view. You also have a search view. And this could be a nice base to start kind of listing our items and to kind of build out the app. So let's go back and let's try loading the items that we stored in the database. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. And the problem is on this page, there's no list view, right? This is all static, right? So instead of it's duplicating, it's essentially, it's essentially like copies of each other. So what we need to do is we need to pick one of these, right? So let's say this card view. And what we want to do is we want to have a parent as a list view. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to say wrap widget, and I'm going to do a list view. Okay, now we have a list view where its children are, well, its child right now is a card view, and this thing is going to be replicated by the number of elements that we have in the list view. So I'm going to delete all the other ones. These are extra ones right now. We don't really need them. Okay, so it's deleted. Now we can go to this list view, and what we can do is we can load up our actual listings from the database. Now we can't do that just yet because we haven't defined the schema by the way, that we're going to be accessing the data. So we need to do that now. We're going to come to Firestore. We have the users collection. We have the schema here, and we should have the user there as well. So if we go back to our database, go to Firestore database, we should have the users collection here created for us by FlutterFlow. So if we come to users, we have this one user account that I just created. But what we need to do now is we need to go back to the app and we need to create a schema for the other data that we have in Firestore. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to type places. Okay, we're going to do that. Start from scratch. And I'm going to go back here. And what do we need? We have amenities, which is a list of strings. We have image, location, name, and price. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's do name, which is a string. We have, let's see, location, which is also a string. What else do we have? Name, location, price, image, amenities. So price, integer, which is going to be an image path. And we have amenities. So amenities is going to be a list of strings for now. Maybe later on we'll make it something else, but right now that's kind of how I see it. We have that. The other thing that we need that I didn't do here actually is, now that I remember, we need a link to the owner. We need to know who is the person that's running it. Maybe you want to display their name, some information about the person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do owner ref, or yeah, let's do owner ref. And this is going to be a document reference to users. Okay, so we need this document reference here. And I also need to do it in the data as well. But right now, this is fine. Now, another thing that I want to do before I run the app is I want to create a couple of other users. So that way we have maybe a user that's browsing, a customer, and maybe another 2 customers and 1 owner, or somewhere, you know, 1 customer and 2 owners. Or in fact, let's do 2 owners and 2 customers. I think that's going to be a nice approach. So the way that we want to do it, and this is kind of, you know, the best way of doing it, there are a couple of ways of doing it, is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do it through the app. But the problem with this app is that I cannot log out, right? I cannot log out because there's no page where I can log out and I can log in as another user. Okay, so for that, we need to create another page. So we're going to come back here. And I'm going to create another page that's going to be kind of this profile page. So if you go into settings, you have some pages that you need to create anyway. So this is a simple one right here. Let me create this one. Or, okay, so this one is probably closer to kind of what we need. I think this one is going to be the best one. And I'm going to call this profile. Okay, so we're going to create this page. Now we have this page. And now the next thing I want to do is I want to change some of the settings so that we can see who is, you know, we can see the authenticated user, the current user. That way it's good for testing, and plus that's what we need to do anyway. And also I want to have a setting where the user can log out. Okay, so there's no option of logging out. And so I'm going to add maybe an option here so the user can log out. So first, let's go ahead and change these settings so they reflect the current user. So I'm going to select these fields, come here, authenticated user, and we want to do display name. Here we want to do email, and this is going to be their profile picture. Come here, authenticated user, photo URL. So this is going to be the actual logged in user information. And I also want to do this setting here, this content view. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to rename it, right? So it has that user icon. So this is kind of what we want. We just want to change it to log out. Okay, so if they click on this thing here, it's going to log out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this container right here. I'm going to select the container. That way they can click on the whole thing. And I'm going to open the flow editor right here, and I'm going to add an action. I'm going to go into, actually, I'm going to search for auth. And inside auth, we can select log out. And so once they click on it, it's going to log out and they're going to be shown the logged in page. And that way they can log back in or create a new account, etc., etc. Now, another thing that we need to do is we need to create a nav bar. And that way you have nice navigation, but not only that, you have actual way of getting to this page, because without the navbar, you won't be able to get to this page. All you're going to have is this login home flow. So we want the navbar to be on home, and we want the navbar to be on profile. So the first thing we need to do is come here, navbar, enable this navbar, and then we want to select 2 pages that we want the navbar. So the first one is home, click on home, show navbar, and this is the icon, home icon is fine. Next is profile, show navbar, and for the user, I'm just going to search for user. Yeah, this is fine. And now we have a navbar here. So now let's go ahead and run this app or reload our existing test environment here. All right, so this is our app right now, but we also have the navbar. So I'm going to click here. And as you can see, it's showing my information. So right now I only have the email filled in. I don't have a profile picture. I don't have the display name. That can all be fixed. But we have the logout. So if I click on logout, we're logged out. And so I can log back in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new account. So I want to create 3 more accounts. 2 of them are going to be users, and 2 are going to be apartment owners. So I'm going to create another account, say john@john.com. Okay, so we have John, and I'm going to create 2 more accounts. Let's say jessica@jessica.com. All right, we're going to log out. And 1 more account, amy@amy.com. Get started. All right, so now we have 4 accounts, and we can designate some of them to be the owners, some of them to be the actual customers. All right, so here we are. And if you come in here, you can see some information. We still need to fix this because this should be scrollable. There's an overflow here. This is not viewable. This should be fixed. But at least, we have the basic flow. And so let's go back and let's do a couple of things. Well, first of all, I want to add, some information to the profile. So if you go back to your app and you go into Schema users, you see you have display name, you have photo URL. You're not going to have these fields here because the only fields you have are like the minimal fields. But so this is my account here, James. I'm going to add a display name and I'm going to say James NoCode. And then I can also add a profile picture, and that's photo URL, right? So I can do a photo URL. So you can go to a site called random user /photos, and you can pick any photo. So let's say this guy here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the address here just to kind of just put it in here. This is the photo URL, and we can do that for the other account. So this is Amy. Let's do it for Amy. Maybe this person right here, or well, this is actually a fake account. So this image right there, let's go back here, photo URL, and let's do it a couple of more accounts. Copy image address. This is going to be for John, and we need one more for Jessica. Jessica right here. Okay, so we have that. So now if you run the app, you see it's automatically updated, right? Amy doesn't have this name. Let's fix it right now. Display name. I'm going to say this is it Amy? No, this is Jessica. This is John. Add field. John. We have James and we have Amy. So now if we go back to the app, you see it's all showing up. And if I log out and I log in as myself, I should have that information set as well. Okay? James NoCode, we have the profile pic, we have all that. All right, so before we fix this, we can always fix that later. Let's go ahead and enable our own settings here, right? Our own data here, right? So we're going to go back to our app. We're going to go to the home page and we're going to go to the list view. So once we have the list view selected, we can click here, add a backend query collection, and now we need to select query collection of what places, and now we're going to have places, confirm, and as you can see now it's replicated. So we don't have images yet, but we do have this. We also need description. So right now I'm just going to have this and this. So I'm going to copy, select that, click here, go to places, name, and this thing here, we're going to click here and we're going to do combine text. The first is going to be places price, and in fact we can format it with custom formatting, and we can format it as a currency, and then we can say per night, something like this, and that's about it. That's kind of all we have. We also have the location, and so what we can do is we can display the location as well. And so what I can do is I can just duplicate this, have it under it, make it a little bit smaller, to decrease the padding a little bit. Let's remove the padding. Let's make it a little bit smaller, maybe something like this, and have the location there. All right, so let's go ahead and reload the app with that list view connected to our places list there. And there you have it. So you see the listing now. We can also scroll through, and these are the 5 listings. Soho, 2-bedroom, New York, New York. That's kind of cool. It's nice formatting, $250 a night. We need a description as well. We're going to do that in a second. We also need the images. So let me go ahead and add a couple of images here. And let's add a little bit of description so that everything is correct. We're going to go into places. Come here. I'm going to add a field desk, which is description. The best apartment to rent in NYC. So I'm going to copy that. Click here. Add a field description so that we have something. All right, that looks good. And we also need the image. So I'm going to go ahead and find an image of New York. All right, so I found an image of New York. We can use that for now, at least until we find a better image. All right, we got the images. Now let's take a look. Let's reload our app. And we need to modify, we need to reference these first, okay? So we're going to reference description, places. We don't have it in the schema, but we do have images. Click here, places, image. And let's add it to the schema. Let's add description to the schema as well. Not here, places, description, string. Let's add that there. Let's reference it now. Okay, let's go ahead and reload this. All right, that is our newly updated app, our last version of the app here. And as you can see, it looks a lot better with this New York City image here. All right, so the next thing I want to look at is the search bar here. And there are a couple of things that I want to do. The first thing is I want to have autocomplete. So, you know, when you start typing, it automatically finds you possible choices for you so that you can choose one of the options instead of, you know, finishing what you were looking for. You can just pick whatever you were searching for. And the other thing I want to do is I want to do a search functionality. Okay, so let's try to get that done right now. Let's start with autocomplete. Thankfully, autocomplete is built into FlutterFlow. That wasn't always the case, but it was eventually added as a feature. And so if you pick this field and you scroll all the way down, you have this autocomplete. So you want to select it, and then you're going to have your autocomplete settings here. Now, obviously, you can give it like static options, or you can pull it from your database, from wherever you're storing the data. And that's kind of what we want to do. And so what I want to do is I want to click here, and I want to select and list the cities, right? The locations, because this is a location field. The problem is we don't have the data. So we need to pull the data first. So we're going to do it at the top level. So it's going to be available everywhere. And additionally, it's going to be helpful for us when we do searching because we need to have the data loaded beforehand. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to do a query. And I'm going to do places where you want to pick a list of documents here, confirm. And now we have this available at the top level. That means we can use it everywhere. So I'm going to click here. And before I set up autocomplete, I want to change email. I want to make sure it's called search field, something like this. And in fact, what I like to do is I want to have it input search. That way I know this is an input field. And we're going to scroll down to this autocomplete section right here. And for the options, I'm going to click here and I'm going to click on places. And you want to click on map list items. And you want to select the item that you want to use autocomplete on. So we're going to do location, confirm, no further changes here, confirm. And now we have places document mapped into the location field. So now if you reload the app, we should see the autocomplete working, hopefully. Let's see if that works. All right, so now if you type New York, we have all of these New York ones. And obviously they're all New York, and so it's all showing up as New York, and you don't really want that, right? You want only one New York showed up, because, you know, if I'm searching for New York, what difference does it make if I pick this one or I pick the first one? I really want it to be filtered in uniqueness. I want these to be unique. So for that, I need to create a custom function that's going to take a list of strings and return a unique value. And we can reuse that throughout the app, because that is something, as you're going to see, that's something that's going to be very, very valuable to us. We're going to click here. We're going to go into add function, and we're going to create a custom function. So this function is going to return a list of strings, and it's going to take a list as an argument. So I'm just going to say list. This is a list of strings, and this is just a one-liner, right? We're just going to do return. You want to do list. You want to do toSet, toList, and that's all you want to do. When you convert a list to a set, it removes all the duplicates. It just keeps the unique values. And then we need to convert it back into a list, because that's what we expect. Now you're going to click on save. And you also want to give this function a name, get unique. Okay, you can ignore that because it is absolutely fine. And you can do check errors. There should be no errors here. It's just a one-liner. No errors. You're going to go back. And now over here, if you scroll down to the autocomplete area here, you don't want to pull up these places immediately. You want to filter whatever you want, whatever you're looking for through that custom function. So we're going to click here, open this up, and we're going to type get unique. And then we're going to pass whatever we want. So places document, map items, and has get document property, location, confirm, confirm, confirm. And that way, the first thing that we're doing is we're calling this function, passing it, and then this function is returning just the unique list there. So we're going to come here, we're going to start a new session, and we see if that that autocomplete is actually generating unique values there. All right, so here's our app. And so now if you type New York, you can see that you have a pull down where you can select this right here. You can also type NY, you can start typing N, and it automatically autocompletes. And there's only one New York, so there's no reason to display all of them. And that's the beauty of filtering it through this unique values, the unique list function that we've just implemented. The next thing that we want to implement is search functionality here. So if they type New York or select it from an autocomplete pull down and they press enter, we want to show them only the listings that are here. And the way that we can do it is FlutterFlow has built-in search functionalities. All you have to do is select this field, come here, and you want to add an action to it. Okay, so you want to search for search, and this is called simple search. On device search, you're going to select that. And the next thing you need to decide, do you want to search Firestore collections? Do you want to search documents? Or you want to search strings? Well, let's say you want to search Firestore collection. You're going to select that collection. You're going to select places, obviously. Next, you want to select the searchable field. Now, here you're going to be typing the location, right? But which fields do you want to search on? Well, you can just do search on location, or you can do all of them if you want. So let's say we choose just location. Next, you want to pick which string do you want to make to use as the string you're going to be searching for. So we're going to select here, and we're going to go into widget state, and we're going to select this input search, right? It's this thing right here. This is this input search here. Okay, so let's go ahead and reload this, and let's see what happens. All right, so here it is. Now, if I type, let's say I type New York, I press enter, nothing happens. And why is that? Well, if we go back, this thing here, right, this list view is being pulled directly from the database. And remember, we are searching stuff, so we only want to display the stuff that we search. So we need to change this. In fact, we need to remove this backend query because we don't need to, pull it from the database. We just need to show the items that the user has searched for, okay? So instead of doing a backend query, we can just come in here and we can just, show the items that the person that the search engine has picked for the user. And so you do that by clicking here, and you have the simple search results. This thing appears only if you've enabled search functionality somewhere. So we have this set on this field. That's why we have this. If we did not, utilize this functionality, we wouldn't have this option here. So we're going to select this, and no further changes, right? We just want the list. Now you're going to give it a name. So I'm just going to say search result, confirm. And now we have the list of those search results. And now what you want to do is you want to configure these items. You want to change the settings. So this is going to be from this search result item. We're going to say this is name, this is location. Click here, search result item location. This is description here. And this right here, this is going to be the price. Okay, confirm, confirm. And that's it. I think we have our image, right? We need the image as well fixed. Search result item, image. So now we don't have any errors. And if we come in here and reload this, let's see if the search is going to be working now. Now, when I run this app, I get a blank screen on the initial load. I can search things. So for instance, I can type New York and I'm going to see some results. I can type Soho and I see Soho. But on the initial load, it's blank, and that's going to be a problem for user experience. The user is going to think there's something wrong. So why is there a blank screen on the initial load? Well, the reason there is a blank screen is that by default, we are showing the search results, and the user hasn't searched for anything. And so initially, what we need to do is we need to show the initial results from the database. And then when the user starts to search, we can show the search results, because even if they, enter nothing or delete their query here, their search terms here, and they press enter, it still shows everything. So we need to take into account that condition. The fact is, on the initial load, initially, if the user didn't search for anything, we need to display the list of items there. And so let's go ahead and do that right now. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to store a page state variable that's going to keep track of everything. So I'm going to add a field, and I'm going to say search bool. Okay, I'm gonna say type is Boolean, and we're gonna set its initial value to false. We're gonna say confirm over here. And then when the user searches for something, we're gonna set that value to true. So we're gonna search for page, state management, update page state variable, search bool, and we are gonna set it to true. Okay, so now when the user searches for something, it's fine to display the search terms. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom function that's going to figure out whether to display the data straight from the database or the search data based on the state variables. We're going to come here, add a function right here, call it get documents. And this function is going to return a list of documents. So document list places. In fact, let's call it get places. That's better. Get places. And that's going to take a bunch of parameters. In fact, it's going to take 3 parameters, right? 2 lists and 1 state variable. So it's going to take in the list, the regular parameters, the regular places, right? The regular places straight from the database, document places. Next is going to be the search results, list. This is going to be document places. And last but not least, we're going to take that Boolean state variable. So this is going to be search bool, and this is going to be a Boolean, and this is going to determine whether to display one or the other. And then we're going to have a one-liner. We're going to say return. So if search bool is true, we are going to return search results. Otherwise, we're going to return list. And that's all we need to do. We're going to hit save, check for errors. No errors. We're going to come back here and we're going to double check that everything is fine. So on this list view, we don't want to pull just the search results. We want to go through our custom function. We're going to come here and get places. And then we're going to pass all the parameters here. This is places. Here it's search results, and this is going to be our state variable. State search bool confirm. Okay, and so now let's go ahead and create a new session. All right, so this is our app, and as you can see, when we load it initially, it's displaying everything here, and that is because this search boolean is false, and as a result, we're showing just regular listings. Now, if you start searching for things, let's say I type Soho, we just see Soho. Okay, let's say I type New York. Okay, we see all the New York listings. Let's say I type NYC. We don't see anything because that's not part of the search string. Let's say I delete everything and I press enter. And now it displays everything. So this is one good thing about the search functionality, is that if you delete everything, it kind of resets the search. And that is why we don't need to change that variable back to false for us to display all the stuff. That is because, you know, if we type something like this, it doesn't display anything because there's no matches for this. But if we delete this and we press enter, it displays everything. So now all we need to do is change it once, and then from then on, the search functionality takes over. All right, so this works perfectly now. We can continue adding new functionalities and features to this app. All right, so now let's work on the whole filter with the dates. So that situation where you have the from and the to. So let's say I want to come, you know, I want to visit, let's say from June 1st to June 15th. How would we do it? Let's begin. So let's say we want to have this filter below this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this thing here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some space here. So maybe, so for instance, I can add a new element here and I can start with a calendar. So let's say I have a calendar here. And now I have a calendar. Now you can't see this calendar just yet. And the reason for that is because this whole thing is constrained. It's height constrained. So if you go to this overlay, you see it has a fixed height. We're going to remove that. And then there's another one above that has a fixed height. We're going to remove that. And now you see the calendar. Well, you still can barely see it because it's, you know, its background is transparent. Okay, so what you can do is you can wrap it inside a container. Okay, so and that container obviously fix the height, the width, and now you can see the calendar. Okay, so this is a good start, and we can also create some padding at the top. And now you have a calendar. Now, calendar is a great widget here in FlutterFlow because it allows you to work with dates. And more specifically, it allows you to pick a date, by looking at a calendar, right? You can enter the date manually, but it's a lot user-friendly to kind of, play around with the calendar. And if I go ahead and reload this app, you can take a look at the functionality here. So let's go ahead and reload this. And this is what it looks like right now, right? So you can pick your dates. You can go forward, you can click here, and you can go to your current month. You can play around, and we have a couple of settings on calendar. So if we click on calendar, you can choose initial date. This is optional. You can also do a week view, right? So it's just going to show you the week. You can start on Monday, so we can select that. And that's about it. Now we have some styling options as well. So if you scroll down, you have title style, day of the week style, date style, selected date style, etc., etc. Now, another thing that this calendar widget does for us is if you go into actions, we can add an action. So if you open this up, you have a trigger on date selected. So if we selected a date, we can have an action that does something. Okay, so it can, save that date somewhere, display it, you name it, right? So this is very, very important. If we didn't have this, then it would just be like a dumb widget, meaning that it would just display things, but we wouldn't get any use out of it. Okay, so let me go ahead and delete this action for now. And then we're going to do it a little bit differently. So we deleted the option. And also for this purpose, I really want to do I don't want to do a week view. I want to start on Monday, but I want to see the whole thing. And so the way this is going to work, the way I'm kind of seeing it work is that we are going to have dates. And if the user clicks on it, they're going to have a calendar pop up. They're going to pick a date, and that date is going to be displayed in that field. And so let me show you what I mean. So we have this text here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double this text, duplicate it. I'm going to duplicate it here. I'm going to put it just below search right here. And now we have this text here that we can possibly use as one of the dates. So we can have two text fields for, start date and end date. Okay, so let me add a little bit of padding to it at the top. From the top, so we have the padding, and I can also, give it, call it something like start date. Okay, so that we remember what it has. And here I can remove everything, and I can actually have a workflow, have a flow where if I select the date for this, it's gonna save it here, and it's gonna display it. So for us to do that, we need to create a new variable. We need to create a page state variable. So let's go in here, and let's come here, and let's create a page state variable here. We're gonna call it start date, and this is gonna be date and time. Confirm. Okay, now we have the start date variable. Now I can come here and I can load it up from this page state variable called start date. Okay, and let's go ahead and format it. How do we want it to be displayed? Something like this. Okay, so now we have the start date variable, and if you select something, right, what we want to happen is we wanted to save that, that selected date that we chose here. We want it to be saved as the page state variable. Okay, so that way it's going to be displayed here. So let's go ahead and open this up, open the flow on date selected. What we want to do is we want to save that a date that was selected to a state variable, that page state variable. So we're going to do update page state, and we're going to add a field. This is going to be start date. And now we need to set the value. Do we have the value? Yes, because if you come to widget state, we have this calendar selected date. So we can select that, and we can pick start and end. This doesn't really matter. It's the same one. So we're going to say start. And now what's going to happen is if we pick the date here, it's going to show up here. Let's go see if that works. Let's start a new session real quick. All right, so here's the app, and here's the date that's being displayed. So if we click anywhere else, you're going to see the date is changing. Okay, you see that? So this is really, really nice. Okay, this is really nice. And it does what we wanted to do. It saves the date. So now we have this date saved in a page state variable. If we want to do filtering or we want to do something with that date, it's available. But what I don't really like is I don't like this whole calendar taking up so much real estate, because if you think about it, right? So let me zoom out. This is the app right here, and it's taking up more than the listings, right? I have to scroll down to the listings. So another way of doing it would be if we click on the date, you're gonna have a calendar pop up. You're gonna click on the date that you want, and it's gonna display it and close the calendar. Okay, so let's try doing it like this. The way that we can do it like this is by using a there's a something. So for instance, this thing we can assign an event, right? So we can say on tap, and then we can go into widget and UI interactions, and we can have a bottom sheet. So we can click on the bottom sheet, we can make it show. Now this bottom sheet needs a component. Okay, so we need to select a component. We don't have any components, so something that we can do is we can turn this into a component. Okay, so this calendar here, we can right click it and we can say convert to a component. Okay, we're gonna call it calendar view, create component, and now what we have as a separate component here inside of FlutterFlow. Okay, and so if we go back to our app, in fact we can click here and get out. This is now displaying this component, and we don't really need to display it like this. We can essentially delete it, right? We don't really need it here, and so we can do this, delete all of this, because we have the component, and we can go to this date, open it up. This is open here, select the component calendar view. Okay, so what's going to happen is once we click on this, we're going to have a component pop up from the bottom, this bottom sheet here. Okay, and we have, we can pass different parameters. We can make it blocking, non-blocking, non-dismissible. We can also make it draggable. Now we are getting an error here. So if we come in here, it says app state update action local state field start date using an action in calendar can no longer be found. So let's click on this, and this thing, it doesn't have access to that page state variable, because now this is a component, right? We're editing a component. And remember, the whole purpose of this calendar was that if we click on something, it's going to modify the page state variable. But these things, these components, they don't have access to a page state variable because they're kind of like another page, right? As you can see, we have pages. So by turning it into a component, we don't have access to page state variables anymore, but that's fine. There's a bunch of other techniques that we can use to fix this. But right now, let's delete this and let's see if it's working. Let's see if things are showing up correctly. So let's go let's do one thing at a time. Okay, so let's go back. We have this. Let's go ahead and reload, do an instant reload on the app. Let's just, as we're building the app, let's build it one thing at a time, and then we're going to fix it gradually but surely. All right, so this is what we have here. Now, this is not visible because it doesn't have a default value, and we haven't actually set anything. So let's go ahead and have it display a default value here, okay? Let's come in here, and actually, let's give it a default value. Okay, so this is this thing here. Okay, we're going to give it a default value here. We're going to reload. And now it says here start date. So if I click on it, you see this thing pops up, and it doesn't have a background, doesn't have a container set up. So it's kind of transparent, but you see it kind of popped up. And if you click out, it closes. So at least this is working. Now, if you select any date, it's not connected to this. So it's not going to change it. We still need to fix that problem. But right now, let's make it so that it has a background. So let me go ahead and fix that right now. And so to make this component visible, we need to set a background. So we need to have like a white background, and that way we can see the whole component and the calendar visible. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back. We're here in the component view, and what we're gonna do is there's a couple of ways of doing it, but one way of doing it is to wrap it inside of a kind of a container. So I'm gonna select this wrap widget, and we're gonna wrap it inside of a container. Okay, now as you can see, this container is white and it becomes visible immediately. It's just we need to make sure the width and the height are not bounded. Okay. All right, so now we have a container that takes up the whole size, width and height of this widget here, this calendar widget. And so if we reload our app, it should be nicely visible now. All right, so there's our start date. If we click on it, you see how it pops up. Looks really nice, a really cool flow here, but again, it's not really doing what we wanted to do. So when we pick this, it's not changing anything. And that is because we need a way to tie what we are picking here, tie it back here. And before, when this calendar view was on the main page, so in other words, it was on this home page, we can use page state variable because it was all the same page. But now we can't really set it. And so there are a couple of ways of doing it, but the easiest way of doing it is by using an app state variable. Okay, so we're going to create an app state variable. We're going to say start date. Okay, and we're going to label this, set the type as date time, and the same thing for end date, which is going to be date time right here. Okay, and so now what we can do is we can set this using the state variables. We're going to go into properties. And we're going to say, instead of page state, we're going to say set it as app state variable. That way we can change it. Okay. And we can also format it. Let's go ahead and format it. Let's set it to this date right here. Okay. So there it's formatted. And we can do the same thing for the end date. So let's go ahead and duplicate this real quick. We still need to format it, but I'm going to just duplicate it. And so now we have a start date, except it's in a column format. So it's a lot better to wrap it inside of a row and put it in here. Okay, and that way they're going to be aligned correctly. We can do something like this. Let's call this end date. We have the start date, this start date, and this is going to be end date. We can just search for end date. Let's go ahead and format it, some kind of a neutral formatting. And now we have start date and we have end date, and we can delete our page state variable, this thing here, so there's no confusion. So now let's go and try loading it and see how things display right now. There's still a couple of things that we need to do. Okay, so as you can see, nothing is being displayed here, and that is because we haven't set the default value. Okay, so let's go ahead and set a default value. We can set a default value right here, or we can set the default value right here in this app state. So we can come in here and let's say we have a default value here, whatever, doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously you can set it programmatically if you want as well. And so now let's go ahead and reload this. Okay, so now the dates are showing up correctly. And if I click on it, we have the flow. Still nothing is being changed because we haven't connected this here, but at least, you know, the dates are showing up. This widget is showing up. So let's go ahead and connect the two. So that way, when we click on it and click on the date, it changes it here. Okay. And so what we need to do is we need to go to our component and we need to work with this component. So there's this calendar view component, go into calendar, come back here and you can add an action. Okay, so this is on date selected. What do we want to do? Well, we want to set the app state variable. Okay, so we have state management, and what we can do is we can update app state, and we can update start date or end date depending on which date we're selecting. Okay, so let's try with start date first. Just to show you how it works, we can set value, and we're gonna go to widget state, calendar, selected date. You can select any of these, that's fine. And let's see if that works. All right, so now if we select this right here and we change the date, say we do 24. Okay, so now if we click here and we change the date and we get out, it changes it here. So as you can see, let's say we do 20, 21, put it in here, it updates it here. Now, it's not updating it automatically, and so there's a reason it's not doing that. And the reason it's not doing that is if we go back to calendar view and we open this up, you see how on this component level, we have rebuild current component. Well, we don't want to rebuild just the current component. We also want to rebuild the containing page. So if we do that, and now if we reload the app, we should have the proper behavior that we're looking for. So if we select this right here and we change any date, you see it's automatically being reflected there. This is kind of nice. And then the user can simply click out, or maybe we can have an OK button where, you know, something like dismiss, because they're seeing these dates change. Or they don't even need to see it. The fact that they're changing it here, it's enough that it's being updated here. And so maybe it's a good idea to have some kind of an OK button that dismisses it. So let's do that right now. Let's go into the calendar view. We have this calendar view here. We have this container. What we can do is we can add a column in here, and actually we're gonna wrap this inside of a column. Here we can add a button, and the button is gonna be right there. We can give it a little bit of padding, something like this, make it a little bit longer. Let's do 150. Yeah, that looks better. So something like this. And this container, we probably wanted to wrap the whole thing. Okay, so we wanted to wrap the button and we wanted to wrap the calendar. So in that case, what we can do is we can wrap this calendar in a column. We can wrap it in a column. We can drag that button right there. And now everything is nicely done. And now we need to set this button so it dismisses this container. That's good user interface, right? Because they click on it, it displays it. Now they need to dismiss it. So fortunately, this is really easy. You go into actions on the button, open it up, untap, add an action, and here you can do dismiss. Bottom sheet dismiss, and it knows that it's on that sheet and it's gonna dismiss itself essentially. Okay, and we can change how this button behaves. We can change what this button says. I can say dismiss or close. Close is better. A little bit bigger, something like this. And let's go ahead and reload this and see how it looks. Okay, we click here. Okay, now it's being displayed here. We can close it and it closes it. Okay, so we need to fix the spacing. There's some spacing issues. So let's go ahead and fix that right there. And so now that we have a container with a column and these two elements, the calendar and the button, we don't really need this column. So we can drag it up. We can simply replace it, something like this. Let's see if that fixes the issue with that extra column that we just removed. All right, we click on this. Okay, and that's better, except there's some empty space here because of that new column here, because of this column. And so we want to make sure that on the main axis size, you want to use this minimum. This is kind of these alignment, spacing properties. So let's go ahead and reload that, and that should be better because we don't want it to use the maximum, which is the whole screen. We want it to just, wrap the elements that are within it, okay? Okay, perfect. And now it's closed, and that's exactly what we want, except maybe we want to give some padding on the bottom. Something like this, and let's see how it looks. Okay, we click here. Oh, perfect. Look at that. So now there's spacing on the top of the button and the bottom. That's much better behavior, if you ask me. And still, if you're changing it, you see it's updating this page here, and this component is separate. It lives its own life. It doesn't have access to, it doesn't have access to pages properties because it's kind of like a separate page, but it does have access to app state variables. And look at that. We close it, and now this is set correctly. And so the other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that setting it by either the start date or the end date. Okay, so as you can see, we click on start date, and it's setting it. And now we need to do the same thing for the end date, okay? And so the way we do it is we need to let the component know which date it's dealing with, because right now it's just dealing with the start date, hard-coded, but we need to pass a parameter that tells it, look, you're dealing with the start date. And so if you're dealing with the start date, make sure you update the start variable. If you're dealing with the end date, update the end date variable. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the calendar here on this component level. We're going to go on the component. So we're going to add a parameter, and it's going to be called start date. And this is going to be a Boolean. And we can say it's required because, this parameter is required, right? So if this is true, then change the start date app state variable. If this is false, change the end date app variable. We're going to say confirm. And now we need to do a little bit of logic here, okay? So when we open it up, we need a conditional, right? So we're going to add a conditional. We're going to add it to the top. And here, what we can do is we're going to copy an action. We're going to say paste action. And here we're going to paste another action. We're going to change it, delete action. And now this is going to be a condition here. So what is the condition? Well, the component parameter, if its start date is true, which is here, it's a Boolean, then we're going to update app state, which is the start date here. If it's false, we want to update the end date, right? So we're going to update the end date with the value that we're being passed. We're going to go to the app state here, and we're going to go to the widget state here and select the calendar selected date. And doesn't really matter here. Confirm. Okay, rebuild. Okay, Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and see if that works. And next, we need to pass the right parameters. So if they click here, we want to pass this start date as true, right? So this is going to be start date as true. If they pass here, if they click on this one, we're going to come here. And now we need to pass start date as false because this is the end date, okay? So now let's go see if that works. Let's go ahead and reload our current session here. Okay, so let's see. This is our start date, and you see it's changing. Perfect. This is working. How about the end date? Okay, perfect. And that is working now. And now we have this one component that can be reused in many situations. So it can be reused here, and it can be reused here as well. Perfect. And what's nice about it is now these dates are set on the app state level, which means the whole app has access to them. And really, only this page really needs to have access to them, but that's fine because it's flexible this way. And we can kind of keep building the app now that it has access to it. Now let's go ahead and add start and end date here. Let's add a couple of labels. So let's click on this. We have this row. Let's add another text widget. Put it right here. Okay, and let's set it to white, and we're gonna say start date or something. Okay, so we have this text right here, start date. Another thing that we can do is we can have one text field, kind of a combined field. I think that's gonna be even better, actually. It's gonna align it better. And so let's do that. Let's actually delete this, and let's come to this one. And this right here is this app state variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to say text combine text, and this is going to be start date. And then we're going to have that app state variable, right? Start date here. Go ahead and format it. And now they're going to be together, which is much better. And we're going to do the same thing for this one. Edit it. And we're going to do combine. This is going to be end date, add text, and we are going to go into app state, end date. I'm going to do that, confirm. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and reload this, actually start a new session. All right, and that's kind of what we have, right? We have the start date, we have this end date, and you see how it's being modified, which is kind of cool. Come back here, and let's say you want to stay for a month, and you have this being modified, start date, end date. You know, we might want to maybe wrap it inside of something, change things around, like make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and we'll do that a little bit later. Right now I'm after, you know, the functionality. I'm after kind of getting this app to work and getting all the software bits and pieces to work. We'll do the UI a little bit later. In fact, we can even have start and doesn't really matter here. All right, so this is now working. The next thing I want to look at is having the filter for the amount of people. So I think on the Airbnb, if you come over here, you can see that there's actually a filter. So you see they have this guest filter, and if you scroll down, they have this big filter: adults, children, infants, pets. We can set up like adult filter just to kind of start with. And in fact, FlutterFlow has a nice widget there that kind of mimics this behavior, this minus plus kind of thing. A really cool widget that we're going to be using. All right, so the filters are starting to come together, and we need one more filter. We have the free text, free form filter here. We have the start date, the end date filters, and we also need the number of people, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to come here, we're going to select this, and we're going to add a new row. I'm just going to duplicate this row right here, and I'm going to delete these things, and I'm going to add a new filter there, right? I'm going to delete this, add a new widget, scroll down, and you should have this nice widget called counter button. Okay, so if you select that, it kind of does what we want. It's very similar to the one that's on Airbnb. Theirs is rounded, but ours is kind of boxy. Okay, maybe there's a setting to make it rounded, right? So there's a border radius. Okay, so that makes the whole thing rounded. It's not per icon. Actually, maybe we can change the icon size. Yeah, maybe not. So maybe it's not, maybe these icons are as is. But in any case, so let's make it a little bit smaller. And we can do that. We have this container properties here, right, for the whole container. So we can make maybe the width 120, maybe even 100. And we can make these individual icons smaller. So maybe like 17 or 16. Okay, so something like this. Maybe it's too, yeah, that probably looks better. Okay, so something like this, height. Okay, so something like this. Okay. Okay, maybe something like this. Let's add a text and let's drag it up here. And let's say the background is gonna, actually not the background, the text color is going to be white. Okay, and maybe, why isn't this white? Ah, it's not exactly white. It should be white. And now it's going to be better visible. So this is going to be, guess, something like this. And let me show you how this works. Okay, so if you click on this, you can also control what happens when the count is changed. Okay, so if you change it, you can display a new value, okay? And you can also take that value and display it somewhere else, okay? So let's go ahead and reload this. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so there it is. So if you increment it, you see it's being incremented. Okay, so it's going to negative. We need to fix that. You need to fix the negative because you kind of don't want that. So let me fix this negative right here. So if you go in here, we can add an action. We can come in here and we can say uncount changed, okay? And so we can have a condition here. We can add a condition that checks, is this less than 0? And don't set it to 1, right? So we can come in here, and what we can do is on this main condition here, we can come in here and we can set a condition, okay? So we can say, let's do a single condition, and here we can scroll down, go into widget state, and we can check this count controller, right? So this is the integer right here. We don't need to do anything. This is the value right here. And we can say if this is less than 0, do something, right? So if it's less than 0, we want to do something, okay? So we're going to come in here, specific value. We're going to say less than 0, okay? And then we can just set this count controller back to 0, okay? We can come in here, add a condition. We can add an action here. And you can just search for count controller. It's going to be in state management. You can set a for field, count controller to 0. So if it's less than 0, just keep it to 0 at 0. All right, let's see if that works. It's a little tiny UI fix, because if it's -1 people, doesn't really do us any good. It's not going to work. So let's reload the app. Okay, so we can go forward. And you see, if it's minus, nothing happens. It's a little fix, and believe me, in your production apps, you definitely want to make sure that you have this. So really, really nice, really clean, and we have this guess. So guess obviously cannot be 0, right? It should be at least 1. So maybe by default, we want it to have to be set to at least 1. Okay, that's another thing to keep in mind, but we'll do that later. All right, so now we have guess, we have start and date, and we have search functionality. So I can type Soho and it displays Soho, can delete everything, and we see everything. And so now that we have the filters here, the next thing that we need to do is obviously to test out these filters, right? We have the filters, but we still need the logic to make sure that we are displaying the right apartment. Now, some of this is going to be easier. This is already done. The guess is easy. We can do that next. But this is going to be more complicated, right? The booking is going to be a little bit more complicated. So let's go ahead and do the guess filter. And the booking we're going to do a little bit later because it's a little bit more complicated. So for the guess filter, it's really, really easy. Now, Airbnb has a search button here. But the way our app is designed is that it automatically searches. Now, if you recall, we have the search functionality here. And the search functionality looks at that list view that we've gotten from the database and filters it further. And so if we want to filter by these values, we need to filter the source. We don't want to filter the list view because essentially this list view here is just search results, right? So I'm just going to call it search results. So there's no confusion. And so if we go to the home where we get the data directly from the database, the data that we're going to be eventually filtering, we need to work with this data. And so if we come in here, we can edit this backend query and we can set up various filters. Okay, so I can set up the guess filter. I can set up anything. Okay, so if I add this filter right here, I can filter by different things in the collection. Now, right now in our database, in our schema, we don't have the number of guests. So we can add that and then we can filter it by, right? So let me go ahead and add that element there. Right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add, let's say, max people. Okay, and we're going to say this is an integer. And now you can specify the maximum number of people. So if you have an apartment and you are looking, you know, only to host 2 people, you don't want to host like 5 people there, right? Because that's going to be extra or something, or there's going to be a different apartment. You don't want those apartments to show up when people are searching for like, you know, 5 people or 10 people or whatever. So I'm going to go into my Firestore here. I have my Airbnb, I have my places, and I'm going to quickly add this new field here. I'm going to add this field called max people, and this is going to be a number, and let's say it's 2. Let's add this right here. Let's say this is 3. Add this right here. Let's say this is 1. Let's say it's a studio or something. And let's say this is 5. And let's say this is 3 right here. You know, if there's an apartment with max people of 2 and you're looking for an apartment that hosts 3 people, you definitely don't want this to show up, right? You want this to be filtered out, right? So we can go back to our app. We have max people on the schema here. We can come back here, and what we can do is we can now set up a filter on this list, on this main data here, right? We're going to go add it back in query, and we're going to create the filter. We're going to say, actually, we set this on the users by accident, so let me delete that. Set it on places, max people. It's going to be an integer, okay? So now if you go back, add it back in query, add a filter. Now, for your filter here, you want to make sure that max people is always going to be greater than or equal to whatever you specified, okay? This is the value that's important, right? This is the constraint. Because if this is less than whatever we specified, we want that apartment to be filtered out. This always needs to be greater than or equal to. So for instance, if, you know, the landlord, the owner of the apartment set it to like 5 people, right? You want it for every value unless this value is greater than 5. So 1 through 5 is fine, right? Max people. But anytime it's going to be greater than 5, so if it's going to be 6, it's going to be filtered out, because now max people is not going to be greater than or equal to. It's going to be less. Okay, so keep this in mind. This value is the main constraint. And as a result, now if we increase this value, we're going to be filtering out the apartments. And so now when we reload the app, you're going to be seeing the behavior where, depending on the value that we enter there, it's going to be filtering the apartments in the list. Okay, so here's our app. You see, if we set it to 1, we set it to 2. Now we're filtering. Right now, we're not going to be showing apartments where the max people is, let's say, 1, right? Like a studio. We go up, and finally, we're just seeing 1 apartment, okay? I think it was like 5 max people, and we have 4 people, which is absolutely fine. This 1 bedroom in NYC, if we go back here, it's this one right there. One bedroom in NYC, max people is... Okay, so right now, the filtering works. It works here, it works here, and we still need to do the filtering for the start date and the end date. And that's going to be a little bit more complicated because we need to compare the different dates. We need like a very complex kind of filtering, because we need to compare, you know, if the person that is, if the person is booking for a time period that's going to overlap with existing apartments. So we need to compare that. And before I do this filter, before I show you how to do that filter, I want to do the whole booking flow. So right now, I want to come back here and I want to actually do the booking flow, this booking flow here, so that we can at least book some apartments. And then I'm going to show you how to actually filter the right apartments that are not booked for the dates the user is looking for. All right, so the next thing I want to build is this booking flow. Okay, so this includes things like detail page, request to book, and this is the same page. So we probably need like 1 or 2 pages, either this detail page with booking or maybe this page with this request to book as well. And once we build this out, we can actually save our bookings and we can start to build out that filter, that important date filter, because we'll have some bookings in the system. And so we can actually start testing that filter. And plus we can work on reviews, and there's a lot of things that are happening here. So let's go back and create a detail page first, and then we'll see how to create the entire flow. So I'm going to click a new page here, and we're going to search for a nice detail page. So I'm going to go into content, and I actually saw a page that's going to be perfect for what we're doing. So this page right here, I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. Property house, it says book now. There's a call to action. Book now. It has amenities and all kinds of interesting things. So we're going to say use my theme. We're going to call this detail, create page, and now we have this detailed page. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to configure this page, and then we want to build out the navigation to this page. Okay, so let's do a parameter. Let's set up a incoming parameter, and this is going to be called place ref. This is going to be a document reference to places. It's required, confirm. Okay, next we're going to unpack that parameter, meaning we're going to turn that parameter into a document. So we're going to do it at the top level here. We're going to come here, add a backend query, document from reference. We're going to do places, and we have the reference, we have the parameter, so we can unpack that. And now once we have unpacked it, we can start putting things in. So this is an image. Let's scroll down. We have the places document now. We're going to set the image. And what's nice about it is we have these amenities, which are useful to us. And we have these choice chips as well. So these are going to be useful to us as well. So first, let's set up the property title, places document name. This is what? Description, property address. Let's see, do we have description? We have description, so let's just use description, choose an option. And this is choice chips, and this is perfect for us because I was wondering how we're gonna list the amenities. Okay, I thought, we're gonna list them as a list, but this is much better. These amenities that we have here. So what we can do is we have these defined options here. We can come here, we can go into places, and we have our amenities. Okay, confirm. Okay, so now it's going to list the amenities right. We also have, an option for breakfast, no breakfast. So I'm just going to leave that for now. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Now, the next part is important because here we need to calculate the price. So remember, on the previous page, the user is picking the dates, right? So maybe they're going to go for 3 days, a week, a month. So we have that number of days that they're going to visit, right? The length of their trip, right? And we also have the price per night. So once we have all that, we can calculate the base price, and taxes and cleaning fees are very, very simple. So now we need to make sure we're actually getting those arguments. So right now we only have one argument, which is the property itself. So we need to pass the dates as well. So we're going to come here and add a couple of parameters. So this is going to be start date, and this is going to be date time required, and this is going to be end date, and this is going to be date time also required. Now, places, the reference of the place is going to come directly from the database, but start date and end date is going to come from the, just going to be extra because that's what the user is picking there. But now that we have this coming in, right, we can work on this part here. So this is going to be a custom function. So we're going to come here, scroll down, and we're going to create a new custom function. We're going to call it calculate base price. Okay, and it's going to return an integer, and it's going to take, and what are the arguments it's going to take? Well, it's going to take the price per night. We're going to pass directly. This is going to be an integer as well. And we are going to pass the start date and the end date, right? This is going to be date time, and the end date going to be date time again. And so now we have 3 arguments. So what we need to do is we need to calculate the amount of days, subtract the start date from the end date, get the number of days, now multiply that by the price per night. Okay, so here's a little function that gives you the difference. So you can just put end date here, start date here, and you're going to get the difference. So what we need to do is take that number of days and multiply by price per night. Just a quick one-liner. We can save it, and even before using it, we can actually test it, right? And I recommend everybody to do it. Go to test function, put a number. Let's say price per night is 50, let's say. And so let's say we have from the 19th to the 22nd. Okay, so something like that. Let's actually make it PM, something like this. And now we have 50 per night. Actually, this should be 22. So let's go ahead and run it and see what the result we get. Okay, and we get 150 because that is 3 days essentially, 19th through the 22nd, and it's a little bit beyond, being exactly. So it's like 3 and something. So we get 50 times 3, 150. So this function works. We're gonna click save, and now we can start using this function. So we need price per night. So here we need to pass the argument so that it calculates on this page. So price per night, we have the places document, we have price. Date time, we have the parameters. So this is start date, this is end date. We can also format it, custom specify format, display as currency, confirm. Okay, so this right here is going to calculate the base price. I'm just going to ignore taxes right now just to keep things simple. Cleaning fee could be another value, could be another setting. The database, you can add it up, very simple. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep it simple. So I'm going to click here, come here, and what you can do is you can go in here, copy this variable, come here, paste this variable. Nice feature, and now it's going to be displayed there. Now we have the detail page, okay, but we still don't have the navigation, okay? And so if we go back to home, we need to be able to click on this. So what we have is we have the search results here, and potentially they can click on this whole card here, this card view, and we're going to redirect them to the detail page. Okay, so we have one error. That's a custom function. We can just double check it. That's only a one-liner. Should be no issues at all, no errors. Okay, go back. So how can we do it? So we're going to set it. We're going to select this card view, and we're going to add an action, and we're going to search for navigate to detail. Okay, so now we need to pass those parameters that the detail page needs. So the first thing we need to pass is the place reference. Okay, and so pass the place reference because we have the list. And so we can click here, and we need to pick the list view and the specific reference of the item that we are passing, the apartment, to the next page. But the issue that we have here is that, remember, this list here is dynamic, right? This search results, right? If we come back here, it uses a function, okay? So at runtime, this app figures out, do we need to display the data straight from the database if the user hasn't searched for anything yet? Or if the user has, started searching for something, we need to display the search results. And that is why we have this function. And that makes it a little bit more complicated when it comes to passing the reference, because we don't know exactly what we're dealing with, right? So if we come here and we have this place reference, we can pass search results item. We can click here and we can pass the reference, but we can't pass places because places is inside the function. And so by using this technique, things become a little bit more complicated. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the way we display data. I'm going to simplify things. And that's going to enable us to pass the details to the detail page a lot easier. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the search results and I'm going to wrap it inside of a stack, and I'm going to duplicate it, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, so we're just going to simplify it. And so I just duplicate it when we have two search results. And what I'm going to do now is, let me collapse all of this. Let me collapse this. So this first one is going to be data directly from the database. We're not going to use that custom function anymore. It's just a change that I decided as I'm building the app. Okay, so the search results is not going to be search results anymore. So if we come in here, we're not going to do get places. What we're doing is we're just going to use places here. Okay, that's it. This is just going to be places, and I'm going to even rename it. And this is going to be default list. And we're going to do conditional visibility. We want this list to be displayed if the user is not searching. So we're going to come here and we are going to go into page state, and we're going to select this, but we want to negate it, apply opposite. Okay, so this is going to be displayed if the user is not searching. And for search results, we're going to come here and we're just going to do directly search results, simple search results, and confirm. And we want this to be displayed if the user is searching. So we're going to select this conditional visibility, page state, search bool. That's it. And so now we have a stack, and depending on if the user is searching for something or not, we're going to either display this default list or search results. Okay, so this is kind of a simplified way of doing it, and it's going to enable us to get the detail, because now we have two separate lists. Before, we couldn't get the detail of the default list because we were using a function to give us that data, and you can't do that with FlutterFlow. You need to have the list here, and now we have the detail information. And so we're going to go to the default list, and we need to make sure we rename this field. So this is going to be just confirm it. And now we can go to the card view here, and we have place ref, and we can click here, and we have default results item. We can click on this, and we have the reference directly to it. And that means we know exactly which item the user clicked on. And we can also pass the start date and the end date, because these are stored as part of app state. Okay, so we're going to go to app state. We have start date. We're going to go to end state, and we are going to go to app state end date. Okay. So now we've set it up for the default list, and we're going to do the same thing for the search results. Click on search results, expand it, come back here. We have search results, card view, and action, and then place reference. Click here, and we have this search result item. We're going to select the reference, confirm, pass the other ones. Pass start date, app state, start date, end state, end date, end date. And now we have it. And now there should be no issues at all. And this is another way of doing it. And so remember, typically in apps, you have two ways of doing anything, right? You can have a function that dynamically decides what list to display, like we were doing this up to now. Or you can have a stack, and then you can have two lists. This is the simpler way, but you're duplicating, right? So anytime you make a change on one of these lists, you need to make the change in the other list. But this is probably a more kind of straightforward way of doing it. It's a more kind of logical way of doing it, because, you know, in programming, that's probably how you're going to be doing it anyway. All right, so now we have this default list that shows up if the user is not searching, and search results that shows up if the user is searching. So let's go ahead and run this app, and let's see if the detail view is working. So we're going to come here, create a new test environment here. So now we have these two default dates here, and we have the default list. So if I click on it, I get redirected, and my total price is $17.50. Now, why is that? Well, this is 7 days, and this is 175. If I do 175 times 7, I get 1225. And this is the result right here. Obviously, I can pick something else. 250 multiplied by 7 multiplied by 7, 1750. Okay. But I can also search, right? I can also type Soho. Let's say I want an apartment in Soho. 250. So that's 250 times 7, 50 times 7, 1750. Click on it, and we have 1750. So as you can see, this flow is working for non-searchable data, so like default data, as well as searchable data as well. And I can come here and I can delete it, and this is still now searchable again, and this is all gonna work, right? So 200 a night times what, 7, what is that, 1400? 1400. Okay, so as you can see, this is working fine, and plus we are also displaying these amenities, right? So we have loft, we have Soho, rooftop access, we have all of these amenities. Breakfast, no breakfast, I don't think we really need that, but at least the amenities are showing up correctly. Okay, come in here, we probably don't need this choose an option, and we have the amenities here. We can delete that. So let me go ahead and delete that real quick. Come here, go to detail right here. Let's delete this choose option, and let's also delete this here. Okay, just to keep things very, very simple. And so now let's take a look at this booking button here, and let's see if we can fix it. So as you can see, this button here, it has padding on the bottom. If you remove the padding, it's just going to be booked now here. And this thing here, we can have it booked now, and we can simply show a confirmation. Let's say it's instant booking. And so we can create a new page that displays maybe a confirmation page. Let's see if we can do something like that. If there's a page, will give us that, or we'll have to do it from scratch. There's a surf lesson here, kind of similar to what we're doing. So there's a congrats. Okay, so there's a payment. Okay, so how about this one? This is good enough. This is confirmed. There it is, payment confirmed, and we can say booking confirmed. Booking confirmed. And once they click this, they're gonna see this page. We're also gonna create the booking record, and that way we can start working on the search filter for those specific dates, because now this specific apartment is going to be booked for those dates, and they won't, the next person who searches for apartments for those dates, they won't be able to see that apartment because it's going to be booked already. All right, so booking confirmed. There it is, MasterCard. We can also show the total sum, and we can do that from the detail page. So if they click here, we can actually pass this information, right? We can pass it to the detail page. So let's go ahead and create the flow right here. So we're going to pick the button right here. Button, we're going to do navigation here. navigate to confirmation, and along with it we can also pass some of the information about the apartment, the dates, etc., etc. So I'm going to define the parameters, and I'm going to say place reference. This is going to be a document reference. Places, I'm going to do a start date. It's a good idea to pass this information along instead of calculating it and then passing the calculated data. It's just easier that way, right? Start date is going to be date time, is going to be date time, confirm. Now we have this information. Now we can pass it. Place reference, we have the place reference. And we have all of this information. That way we don't need to keep calculating stuff, right? We can just keep passing data. And the page that needs this information, it can calculate what it needs to calculate. Okay, so we have this information. We pass the parameters, and now we can go back to confirmation and we can calculate. Booking confirm. We can just go to our custom function, calculate base price, and we can just recalculate it. It's not a big deal at all. We have the place reference, or in fact, or before we do that, we need to actually pull up the apartment. We're going to go to confirmation, get document from reference, places, place ref, confirm, and then calculate it right here. This is going to be, we're going to function here, calculate base price. Price per night is the place documents. Start date, we pass start date, end date, and we can do currency formatting here. Okay, so now we have that, and we can also display it here. If I'm back here, copy it, paste it here, confirm. So now this is confirmed, and we can go home. This is a button right here, and we can redirect, and looks good. Now, we do need to create the booking record, right? So if we go back to the schema here, you see on the users level, we have bookings. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create the schema for it. Going to come in here, users. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a sub-collection called booking. This is going to be on the users level. So what do we need for the bookings? We need the place reference. I'm going to say place reference. It's going to be a document reference to places. We also need the start date and the end date, right? Start date, date and time, date and time. And I think that's it for now. Later we'll add more as we go along, but I think this is good enough. And now we can go back to our app, and when they click booking, just before confirmation, so right here, this book, now we're going to open it up, and before we redirect them, we're going to create a new record. I'm going to come here, add an action, we're going to put it up on top, create document bookings, and we're going to pass. So this is the user reference. This is authenticated user. This is us, the logged in user. And then we're going to set the fields. Okay, so the place reference, we have all this. Start date from variable we have, end date we have this, and that's it. And now we're going to navigate them to the confirmation. So let's see if it works. Let's double check our custom functions. Okay, no errors. And let's go ahead and test out the functionality. All right, so there we go. So let's say we click in the default list view. So we're going to click here and we get the price. Oh, the other thing we want to do is we want to display the dates here, right? Because we're using default dates. So we can change the dates, 20th to 26th. So 1 week, let's say 7 days, click here and it recalculates, right? So 7 times what? 175, 175 times 7, actually 6. 175 times 6, this is 6 dates. And we have 1050. So we want to display the dates as well, so the user sees, but they're there. It's just we're not displaying them. So let's say we click book now. Okay, so booking confirmed 1050. And let's go to our database and let's see if we actually booked it. So we're going to go to the users and it should have booked it under my user, right? So this is John, James. Okay, so there's the booking and there's the booking. So we have end date, start date, and this is the place. So perfect. So now this place is booked, and that means that it should not show up in the search results. So we're going to work on the query. But before that, let me quickly fix the details. I want to, let me take a look at the confirmation screen right here. So the confirmation is there. Yeah, on the details, I want to display the from, the start date and the end date. Okay, so we have this property address, which is a row right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, and we're going to do start date. This is going to be start date, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to duplicate it here, and we're going to display the end date, and I'm going to change. Okay, and now we're going to display the dates. We're also going to remove the padding to 10. Okay, that's better. And here we can display the dates. Okay, so we can come in here and we have the page parameters start date, and let's go ahead and format it. Date format like this. And in fact, we can copy this, come back here and paste this. So we have start date and end date here. This is going to be displayed nicely and it looks good. And now it's saving the reference, the booking reference. So that apartment now has a booking reference. So we can pull up that data when we are doing the searches, when we're doing the filtering. So let's work on that now. All right, so now we are getting to the heart of the app, and that is the date filtering. And now, if you recall, when I just started doing this tutorial, all the way in the beginning of the video, I talked about how that filtering is going to be tricky. And that's one of the keys of the app. It's not so much about looking at how many people this place can accommodate and all of these things. It's more about filtering. I want to go on these dates. Show me the apartment. Okay, the filtering is one of the fundamental parts of this app. So let's think about how we can do it. So here's our app, and remember, we are fetching this data here. We're doing this backend query. So if we edit this backend query, we scroll down. Right now we have one filter, and that is the max people filter. Max people needs to be greater than or equal the count that we put in here. And this is the constraint, right? Constraint comes first, right? Whatever they specified as the max people that they can accommodate, the specific apartment can accommodate, that is what we're filtering on. And so we can create another filter, and this filter is going to dictate whether that apartment is booked on those days or not already. Because remember, we already have one booking. So if we take a look at this collection, we can, filter on name, location, price, image, amenities, description, and max people. But we can't really filter. We can't really figure out, like, how do we filter this apartment out if there is already a booking somewhere, right? How can we do it? Well, the first thing that we need to think about is how can we attach to this apartment? So in this booking, right, we have this booking reference, and we have in the booking document itself, we have the reference to the place. Okay, so that's at least a starting point. But the problem here is that we don't have the reference here. We have the owner's reference, and that's nice, but that's not really useful here. But we don't have the reference of the apartment. And we need that. We need to know, the reference so that we can do something with that reference. We can cross-check it with some of the other data that we already have. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our app, and we're going to create another field in our schema. Okay, we're going to go into places, and I'm going to add another field called place reference. Okay, and so this thing already has a reference, which is a document reference, but I'm going to create place reference, and I'm going to say it's a string. And this is automatically going to have the string version of the document reference. So if we come in here to our apps here, right, to our places, we have our places, and this is the reference. Okay, so we also want to store this reference on the document itself. That way we can pull it, because if we create it in the schema, well, guess what? We can go to our app now here, and we can edit the filters, edit the query. We can create a new filter, and we now have this place reference. So at least something we can attach to, we can compare, because if you think about all of these things, we can't do anything. But place reference, now we can compare it. And so what we are looking to do here is our filter is going to look something like this. We're going to have this place reference, and we're going to say not in the whole list of apartments that are already booked. That is our preliminary filter. That is the architecture of this preliminary filter. So we're going to take the place reference as a string value, and we're going to say, well, we only want to list the apartments that are not already booked. So meaning that their ID, their reference, is not in that list of those already booked apartments. That's kind of what we're looking for. And what is going to come on the other side, right? So we have this part here, this first half of the filter, this first half of the equation. But what is going to be on the other half? Well, it's going to be a custom function. We're going to come here. We're going to create a custom function. We're going to create a new function. And what this function is going to do, it's going to return to us of IDs of already booked apartments. And that way we can take that string, say, is it already here? If it is, don't show it to us. Okay, so we're going to say booking apartments or get booking list. And so we are going to be returning a list of references of apartments that are already booked. We're going to say list. And it's basically going to be a list of strings. Now, what are the arguments that this function is going to accept? Well, it needs to accept the booking apartments, and it also needs to accept the start date and the end date. Okay, so let's go one step at a time. We're going to say booking. This is going to be a list of documents. Next, we're going to do the start date and the end date that the user is looking to book on. We're going to say date time, and we're going to say date time. Okay. So now we are sending in the existing bookings and the start and the end date that the user is looking to book an apartment. And so let's test this function out. We're not going to write any function code right now, but we're simply going to return a list of IDs of apartments that already booked. So I'm just going to say ID1. I'm going to say ID2 and then ID3. And that's it. Now, obviously, these are going to be different. These are going to be the actual reference strings here. But right now, that is kind of what we have. And now we need to pass various parameters to the function. Okay, so we need the booking list start and end date. We have the start and the end date, but unfortunately, we don't have the booking list because we're not, querying that data in our app just yet. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get out and we're going to create this booking list. We're going to pull this data in our on our page so that we can reference, so that we can do the proper queries against that data so that we do not display booked apartments on this homepage here. Okay, so how can we do it? Well, we have this thing here, right, where we are pulling the places, but these places, it needs to filter using already booked apartments. So this booking needs to come before the places. So what we're going to do here is we are going to change this to the bookings. We're going to get the bookings, but then we also need to get the places. So where can we get the places? Well, we can't get it on the column and we can't get it deep inside because we need to, we need to reference it here. So if we pull it up somewhere here, it's not going to be available here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this column in a container and we do that because if you do it on the column level, you're just going to replicate the columns, and that's not what you want. You just want to get the data. You don't want to replicate anything. But when you get it on the container level, you're not going to be replicating anything. So we're going to delete all this. And now we just have a dummy container. And the purpose of this dummy container is to get the actual, this thing is going to have the bookings and this thing is going to have the apartments that we're going to be filtering against the booking. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this query. Let's memorize it. So it's max people greater than or equal to count controller. And so we're going to have this query on this level, do a backend query collection. We're going to do list of documents important here. And we're going to do that filter. So this is going to be max people greater than or equal to count controllers. Count controller, there it is. And this thing here, this home, we're going to change it to list the bookings. And the val query all sub collections. We don't care who booked it, which user, we want everything. List of documents. We need to remove this filter. So now we are getting the bookings here. And here we are getting the apartments that we're going to be there, that are going to have the filter with some of the, with the data that we have here. Now we have a lot of errors here. That is because we changed the queries here. So we need to fix this. Should be no issues at all. So this is not bookings anymore. So you got to change things around. Now we have 8 problems here, and let's go ahead. So this place parameter is, okay, that looks good. Properties. So let's go ahead and fix all of this. This thing here, print property is not properly set in search. Let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, this image is going to be, so if we go to the search here, we open it up, we need to make sure that the search is correct. So we are doing places here, correct? It's going to be our bookings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this places list. And this is our bookings list. References here, search. Okay, here for the autocomplete, we need to change it from bookings to places. All right, so now we have the first query, which are all the booked apartments. And then we have the query that we need to display to the user. Okay, so we can come here, we can edit this backend query, and now we can create the second query that we wanted to create. So this is going to be filter. What we're going to do is we're going to say place reference, not in, and then whatever that function returns. Okay, and so this is going to be our custom function, the return of the custom functions, get booking list. And now we can pass the booking list because we now have the booking query above it. Okay, so we're going to pass it here. Confirm, we can pass the start date and the end date because that's app state, end date here, end date here. And now the goal of that function, right, is to figure out, which ones are booked, and if this is one of the apartments that's booked already. Now, this function right now is just returning dummy values we're going to be using for testing. So we're going to click confirm. And now we have that second complicated filter there. Now, that filter is not going to be filtering anything out right now because our data is not there, right? So for these apartments, we need to create a new field, and this field is going to be this thing here. It's going to be this ID. So for instance, let's say I create this field here. I'm going to call it place ref. I think that's what it's called. Let me double check. Place ref. Yeah, it's place ref. We're going to come here and I'm going to say place ref, and it's going to be its own ID. Do that there. So now this thing, so I'm going to do it for all of them, right? It's important that the data is correct. It's consistent, right? So we're going to add this field here real quick. Place ref. All right. So now for all of these 5 records, for 5 documents, we have a place ref, which is its own ID. So now we can filter on that place ref. We can only display where that place ref is not in the list of booked apartments. Okay. So right now, that dummy function it just returns some dummy values, right? So let's go ahead and change it. Let's say it's going to have 2 values, okay? 1 value, in fact. Let's keep it really simple. And let's say this is going to be this Soho apartment, right? Where's that Soho apartment? This one, okay? So we're going to copy its reference, and we're going to say, well, this function decided to return that it's one of the booked apartments. Okay, so this is the reference. We're going to click save, check errors, and we need to deploy indexes, right? So if you come here, you can click on deploy, and that's going to deploy you the indexes, which is going to enable this this special searching, right? This filtering. So the indexes are deployed, and if we come back here, you can click on indexes, and you're going to see this index is building right now. So while it's building, you won't be able to utilize that index. You want to make sure that it finishes building here, and you can delete it if you want. But if you check it out, you want to wait until it finishes building. Okay, very, very important. And so we're going to wait until it finishes building here, and then we're going to test out our dummy filtering capability, at least just to see if it filters out that Soho apartment right now. And so when we load the app, you're not seeing that Soho apartment anymore, right? It's filtered out. It's filtered out by that dummy function. Okay, obviously it's not working exactly how we want. It's not taking the dates into account, but at least it's not returning it, right? So that's a good start. That means, that the filter is working as intended, right? And if we go back here, and let's say we remove this, right? So we're just going to return an empty list here, save, check records real quick, and reload the app. We should see that Soho apartment because it's not being filtered out. Okay, and there's that Soho apartment. It's back. Now all the apartments are being displayed because this dummy function returns an empty list of booking records. Even though we have one booked record, that we need to make sure it returns it. So right now, what we need to do is we need to take the dates into account. And so we need to create the logic that compares whether the dates that we're looking for overlap with the existing bookings that are in the system already. Okay, so that's what we need to do right now. Now, in our schema, we have the booking. So we have the reference, we have the start date and the end date. And to simplify things, I'm going to add another field called place string ref. And this is going to be the string of the reference. And that way we can easily access it within our code. Because if we have the reference, we need to go to the place and then get the reference. So this is good practice to have both. Okay, so we're going to have place string reference. And I'm going to go into our database here. And I'm also going to add that field there. Okay, so our index has been enabled here. We're going to go into data, and I'm going to go into users, my user bookings, and I'm going to add this field there, right? So we have this reference here to the place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a place. I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, so that way we have the string reference as well, which is going to save us time from, going back to place and getting the reference and all that. Now, for the code to check if there's overlap in the booking or if the apartment is available, now I actually went to ChatGPT and I asked it to come up with a function, right? A function that checks whether a given start date and end date overlap with an existing booking in Dart. And this is the result I got. I went back into my custom function here that I was building, and I put it in here, right? And so what's happening here is that we give it a booking list, and so we're cycling through the booking list, and we are comparing the dates if there's an overlap with the dates. If there is an overlap, which means it's not available, right? We're going to add that specific apartment to the list, and then we're going to return a list of already booked apartments on those days so that we can filter them out, meaning we're not going to be displaying them. And so what I'm doing is I'm building this booked apartment list here based on whether the specific apartment overlap, the dates overlap with the dates given, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm returning bookings, okay? So right now we're gonna get back one record because we have one bookings here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit save, and we're gonna test out this function if it works or not, right? So we're gonna double check that everything is fine, okay? Everything is fine here. Okay, we're going to go back here, and now we can actually pass this function, and now we can go to our places list, edit backend query, and we have the second filter, right? And we already have this function here. And so, and because we already have this booking on this specific date for this specific apartment, we should not see that apartment if we search on these days. So let's go ahead and run the app. Let's go ahead and start a new session. And let's see if we see that Soho apartment if we are searching either on these specific dates or on a combination of dates that overlaps with the existing booking that we have. All right, so when we run the app, as you can see, we are missing one apartment there. There are 5 apartments in total, and we're seeing only 4 apartments. And that is because one apartment is not being displayed. It's actually booked. And if we go into our bookings here, we have this one apartment. This is the ID FAT. If we go back to our places and we find this apartment, this is this apartment right here. So this is this awesome loft 2 apartment that is booked. And if we go into our users right here, this user right here, we go into bookings. This is the apartment that's booked from 20th to 26th. So let's change the dates, and maybe this awesome, 2 loft apartment is going to show up again. So let's go ahead and change the dates. And so now when we run the app, it's filtered out. We're only seeing 4 apartments out of 5 apartments. But if we change the dates to, let's say, 18 to 19, we should see that apartment right there. So right here, we have 18 to 19, and now we are seeing the apartment. So as you can see, the filter is working fine. We are slowly building the app. We're creating the right filters, and we can also search things, right? So we can type Soho, and we're seeing the Soho apartment right here, and we can change the filters, etc., etc. All right, so now that we have the basic flow done, along with the detail page, the bookings and all that, I want to focus on these features. So I want to talk about the favorites here, and I want to talk about the trip screen. And this includes creating the nav bar on the bottom of the page so that the users can easily navigate. So let's go ahead and create the nav bar, and then let's talk about how we can build something similar to this wish list, as well as the trip screen. Okay, so we're going to go back into our app here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to enable the nav bar right here. So there's the nav bar, it's already enabled, and we actually have home and profile set. So if we scroll down, we have home and profile, and the list that I'm thinking of, it's going to look something like this. It's going to be in this grid form, and it's going to have the image of the apartment and some information about the apartment here. So let's go back into our app, and we can probably use one of these screens that we have already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate home right here, and I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to say favorite. And there's lots of things happening, so I'm going to remove a lot of things here. I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove this too, I'm going to remove this too, and I'm going to call this favorites. Now, what I want to do is I want to have, well, first of all, I want to clean up the queries here. There's lots of queries here. I'm going to remove these queries, remove this query so that we kind of clean it up a little bit. And I'm going to clean up the prices. Okay, so we're going to have some information, but we're going to clean up a lot of this. And I also want to delete one of these views because I have 2 views. So I'm going to delete this one. Okay, so now we have a little bit better favorite listing. Let's delete this, delete this. Okay, now it's starting to kind of look better. Now this is a list, but I want a grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a grid instead. I'm going to add it here. and I'm going to create a grid view here. So we have a grid view right here. I'm going to drag it to the top. And in fact, I can put it inside the column because we don't really need the stack. Now let's go ahead and configure this grid view right here. So we're going to have a 2x2 like this. We can also set horizontal, but I'm going to keep vertical. And inside, we're going to have various information. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a column, and we're going to start with an image, and we're going to have some text underneath as well. Okay, so that's kind of what we have right here. We're going to make it expandable. And here we're going to have our favorites that we're going to be listing. Okay, so how is this grid view going to be configured? Well, this grid view is going to pull a list of references to places that the user has set them to be favorite. And how exactly are we going to set them to be favorite? Well, if we go to our data model here, right? We have users and we have favorites, which is a list of ref IDs, okay? And so we're going to go in here and we're going to go on the user level, and let's say I go to my user, James NoCode, and I can add a field that's going to have a bunch of favorites. So let's say I want to favorite this Soho right here. Let's just do Soho for now. I'm going to copy this ID. Actually, I'm going to copy this ID right here. I'm going to go into users and I'm going to add a field. Okay, so this is my user ID. I'm going to add a field. Favorites, which is an array of references. Okay, so I'm just going to have one reference there. So now you see favorites has one reference. And then I can go back into FlutterFlow schema and I can add that into the schema here. Favorites, which is a document reference. It's a list and it's a reference to places. Okay, so now we have it as part of the schema. Then we're going to go into grid view. We're going to come over here to generate dynamic children, come in here, authenticated user. Okay, and that's going to give us a list of document references, confirm, and call this favorite ref. Okay, confirm. Okay, so now this gets the list, but we need to unpack that list, and we're going to do it on the column level. Come in here, we're going to say document from reference. This is going to be places, and we're going to pull in this reference, okay, that we got, okay, confirm. Okay, and now on this level, we have access to the whole thing, okay? So, for instance, we can make it a little bit smaller. We can change the height, something like this, and we can actually have this pull up the image. So we have the places, we're going to pull up the image, and here we're going to pull up the name. Okay, so this is going to be places document, maybe the name. So something very, very simple, and plus you can arrange how you want the image to be. So cover is nice. You can stretch it, you can do a lot of things, but cover is really nice. And here you can give it a little bit of a padding. So something like this. So now, and also let's give this whole thing a bit of a padding. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Maybe give it a 10. Okay, so now we have this favorite. Actually, I want to make sure that it's got a good icon there, right? So let's see. Yeah, favorite. Yeah, heart looks good. And I want to make sure that the profiles is last. Profile is last like this. All right, so let's go ahead and run this app. We're going to reload our test environment to see what's happening. All right, so there's the front page, and we're going to go into favorites, and guess what we see? We see that apartment that we favorited over here, right? So we have this one favorite here, and if we add another ref ID, it's going to be another one. In fact, let's go ahead and add another apartment. We have 9A, this one. I'm going to add this one, go back to users, go back to my account, add a favorite as the reference, paste it in here, and it's going to automatically display it here. Okay, so there it is. Now what we need to do is we want to make sure, we want to link it, right? This is good practice. This is really easy to do. We're going to link it, the whole thing on the column level. We're going to add an event, untap, navigate to detail view, and we're going to pass the reference, right? We're going to pass the reference, and this is the reference right here. Places document. Now remember, on the detail page, we have these parameters that we need to pass, so like start date and end date, and they're required. That is because on the detail page, we're calculating how much it's going to cost. And so in order to display it, we need to pass those parameters. What we can do is we can go back on favorites over here. And so here we can actually create our own start date. We can say start date is actually current date. We can do that current time. And we can also send end date as the current times, just so that we have some kind of variables. A much better approach would be to have an end date plus 7. So by default, it starts like a week from today. And so let's go ahead and reload our app and see if it is working. Okay, so we're going to go into favorites. let's say we have this, and we are calculating time, but because it's the same date, it's displaying 0. And so what we can do here, instead of passing the current time, we can actually add like 7 days. Scroll down, and we can create a very, very simple custom function, create new function, add 7 days. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be returning date time, and we're going to be passing date time. So date 1, we're going to say date time, and then we can just simply return it. So date 1, see we're adding 7 days. That's all we need to do. Okay, we can save it, and we can pass the current time. And we're going to add 7 days to it, okay? Press confirm, and now we're adding 7 days. So let me go ahead and double check that that function is sound. Again, it's just one line. And now we can reload the app. We can go to our favorites, click here, and we see just the date with a week in advance. Another thing that you can do is, instead of redirecting to this detail page, you can simply have it pop up and just display this part here. You can do that as well. Very, very simple without this calculation. So you can simply have it pop up like that. And the way that you can do it is go to this detail, and you can just, have it, maybe this part here, this column, this top image, all of this, you can just wrap that inside of a component and have it pop up without these prices and without this calculation. I think that's going to be the best approach, because you go into favorites, you don't really need that whole page. You might want to just see a little pop-up, a little preview, okay? Now, the question is, how are we going to be adding it? Well, if you go in here, you see this little icon here. So we can convert that icon into a kind of a favorite icon. We can click here, search for something like this, and this heart can be a favorite icon. Okay, so it says here favorite. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And remember, we have to do it in both lists. So we have 2 lists here, and we have to do it in the second list as well. So this icon is done. And this icon, we need to change it heart and make it a little bit bigger. And now what we can do is we can have an action that adds it to the favorite. So this is the second list. I'm gonna come here, open it up, add an action. And what we're gonna do is update document. This is going to be authenticated user reference. And we're gonna set the favorites. Okay, so we have this favorites. We're gonna add to set, and we are gonna add the search results item, the one we're listing, reference. We're gonna add it here. And same thing, we're gonna do it for the other one. So we wanna open it up. We wanna copy this action, go back up, go to this icon, and do the same thing. Paste the action, except we need to do it is we need to change this. Now we have default list. So now add to set the default list value. And that way, when they're browsing, they can add these icons. And you can also have conditional visibility. So you can check condition if it's already there, display another icon. If it's not there, display another icon. Let me show you what happens. So let's go ahead and create a new session. And let me go ahead and delete everything from favorites. Okay, so I deleted it from favorites. Let's go ahead and load this. All right, there's that. So let's say we want to favorite Soho. I'm going to click on it. It favorited. We're going to come here, and it's here. Now, we do want to show a message that has been added. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to go to this icon here, open the editor, and I'm going to add an action. I'm going to say snack bar, show snack bar, favorite, add it, or just add it. Background color, I don't know, blue, something like this. And the text color is black. So we can, yeah, that's fine, light blue. Okay, so now we can copy this action and we can add it to this icon as well. And now if you reload it, okay, we're gonna go into favorites here. And let's say I want to favorite 1 bedroom. I click here, add it to favorites. You saw that? Now it's gonna come down. There it is, it disappeared. And now we have this, 1 bedroom, and then we see that we just favorite. And I can come here and I can book it for a week. And what you want to do is, you do want them to book, right? But also you want to make this editable. And so the same flow that you have on the main page where you can click on it and change the dates, you probably want to do it also the same way from the favorites. Click here, you want to make this editable. Still, this is a good kind of flow to get them to book, right? Because that's what, the purpose of the app is, to get people to book. and create the transaction. All right, so now I want to work on the trips screen, right? And so the idea is we're going to be displaying trips that the person has taken, trips in the future, as well as maybe present trips as well. And the main distinction is that on the past trips, they'll be able to review them. So they'll be able to enter some text and give it a rating that's going to be saved in their profile as well. Okay, so this is kind of how it looks like. And so we are going to go back into our app. And so right now I want to find a list view that kind of looks like the one that we want to display. So it's kind of like this. I think this is going to work fine. So let's go ahead and use this one. And I'm going to call it trips, create page. And yeah, this is perfect. And we're going to call it trips here. I want to make sure this page has the nav bar. There's the nav bar, and we're going to maybe an airplane. Yeah, something like this. And we're going to rearrange them. So profile is last, favorite trips. Yeah, that here are something like this. We can delete this. Okay, that looks good. So let's go ahead and list the trips that the user may have taken, or the trips that the user has in the future. So we have this list view here. We're going to feed it with data. We're going to do a query collection. This is going to be bookings from variable. This is going to be authenticated user reference, confirm, list of documents. Yeah, that's fine. Confirm. And now this is all nicely set. Okay, so now it's here. Now, when we get the bookings, we are not getting the place. We only are getting the reference to the place. So we need to make sure we unpack it. So we're going to come here. We're going to do document from reference. This is going to be places. We're going to go into bookings, and this is the places ref. We're going to do that, right? Places ref here. Now, everything beyond this menu item, under this menu item, is going to have access to place. So we're going to come here, and now we have the places document. We can display the image. We can display the title, name. We can maybe display the location, and we can also display the dates, right? So maybe a combined text with booking start date. We're gonna do a date formatting it, yeah, like add text, maybe a space, add text, and then we're gonna do bookings and date time format, confirm. Okay, now it's also gonna display the dates. So we have that, and this we can redirect them to the detail view if you want, but I don't think that's necessary. We just display the list. So now we have our trips, very, very quick and easy. Let's go ahead and reload our app to see if it is being displayed correctly. Let's go ahead to our trips, and we have one trip that we have booked. Okay, we have it booked in the future, but we need to fix a couple of things. Let's go ahead and fix it up right here. So what we can do is we can put the dates under it, because the dates are taking up a bunch of, so we can take the dates and put them right here. And we can actually delete this column. That's going to give us more space. Okay, let's go ahead and reload this. Okay, scroll down. Okay, that looks a lot better. And there's the booking right there. Very, very clean and nice. Now, what I want to do is I want to group these into past bookings and future or current bookings. So what is the past booking? Is when the end date is in the past. So the end date has passed. So how do we do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to create another list view. We're going to duplicate this. First, we got to clean up these menu items. Clean up these menu items. And we're going to clean up these menu items from that second list. All right, so now we have two list views. I'm going to rename this to current bookings, current or future. And this is going to be past. And for the past bookings, what we're going to be doing is we're going to come in here. We're going to edit the query here, and we're going to do a filter. And what we want to do is we want to check if the end date is in the past. And what that means is the end date is going to be smaller than the current date. Okay, we're going to go to the end date, and we're going to say this is less than the current date. Okay, current time. Confirm. And so this is going to be past booking. And next, what I want to do is I want to give it labels so that we know which is which. Okay, so right here we have a column, but what I want to do is I want to wrap this inside of a column, and I want to give it a label. Okay, so we have this text. I'm going to wrap this inside of a column. Okay, so this is a column. I'm just going to call it column 1, and then I'm going to wrap this inside of a column 2, that it's all nicely organized. And this is column 2. And then I'm going to drag this in here. I'm going to duplicate this and drag this one here. One is going to say current bookings, and this is going to say past. Okay, let's go ahead and reload this. Let's start a new session. All right, let's go ahead into bookings and see what's happening. So this says here current or future bookings. This is still not updated. Past bookings. We have another text. That's fine. Should be updated. Let me do a quick reload right there. Okay, let's go into bookings. Okay, now it's telling us past bookings. And this is obviously a future booking because this date hasn't passed yet, but we can change it in the system and see what happens. So let's come in here. Let's say this happened way before. This is the start date. This is the end date. So now it passed. Let's go back here. And as you can see, now it's being displayed as past bookings, but it's also being displayed here. And that is because we don't have the filter on this. This displays everything. So let's go ahead and set a filter on current bookings so that it's not being displayed. And the way that we can do it is we can say that the end date is bigger than the current date. That means it's either in the future or current, and that's fine. So we're going to say greater than or equal to. Okay, so now if you reload it, it should be in the past. Strictly in the past. There should be nothing in the present or the future. All right, and there you have it. Current or future bookings, there's nothing, and you can display like an empty widget like they have it here. Something like this, you can easily display it. Now, what's nice about this setup is that on the past bookings, we can display a button to review them, right? So if we come to this column over here, we can create another column here, right? So we have a row, we can duplicate this column and we can delete all this and we can add a button. And we can just say button, rate, button, and this could be review. We can just say rate, okay? And that way it's gonna be only there. Now if we reload it, okay, we go into our bookings. We have this review for the past booking. And this can bring up some kind of a, a little pop-up dialog box that kind of slides in from the bottom and might have like a rating and review that's going to save it, right? So you can click here, review, and that's going to review it. Or maybe you can put it below it. I think below it is better. So let's go ahead and put it right there. Delete this column. It's taking up too much space. And you can even center it, right? You can even wrap it inside of a row, center this row, and you can have something like this. Or you can have this row on the bottom. I think that's going to be better. All right, let's go ahead. And so we have this review, but I think having it all the way on the bottom is better. So you see this whole row right here. What you can do is you can add a row to this thing like this row right here, and then you can add a button there. And now you can center it. Doesn't matter this or this, and that's going to look nice. Go ahead and reload this. Okay, scroll down, and there's the review. Give it a little bit of padding on the row. From the bottom, be like this. Yeah, that looks better. Let's do a quick reload. Okay, perfect. And now you know that you can have this review only on the past bookings. Once, the person has stayed, it finished, now they can review it. And you can also easily determine current or future bookings. So current would be where the end date has not passed, and future would be where the start date has not started, right? So it's very easy to kind of figure out what kind of bookings you need. So remember, on the trip screen, we have the ability for them to leave reviews on past trips. So trips that ended already. So we have this button here. And now what we want to do is we want to, when they click on the button, we want to have some kind of a pop-up slide from the bottom of the screen, kind of slide up and display a little, a dialog box. So like maybe, choose a rating from 1 to 5 and maybe type some text or something like that. So we're going to start by creating a new page, and we're just going to do it temporarily because we're going to convert that thing into a component, because we need it to be a component for it to, to be as part of that dialog box, as you will see. So we're going to create a blank page, and I'm just going to call it, review, just a blank page real quick. And here, what we want to do is we want to have a kind of a very simple kind of dialog box, right? So if we come in here, let's see if we have some kind of templates that we can leave. I think I've seen some pretty useful. Let's search for, I don't quite remember what it was called, but let's go ahead and find something that could be useful to us. All right, so we can work with something like this. So I'm going to select this. We're going to wrap it in a column, and this is kind of what we have. Very simple, but a nice start. And what we can do is we can delete this, and now we have a review that we can leave. We have some space for text. And what I want to do is I want to duplicate this row, And here we can have a kind of a rating. Okay, so instead of a text field, we can add maybe a, I don't know, like a pull down or like a select, or yeah, drop down. Maybe we can have a drop down so they can write something and they have a drop down here. So this has a padding of 8. We're gonna mirror then, and now we have a drop down. We have this. We have a column there. That's fine. This is nice, but we don't really need that. Maybe for next time. And we're gonna delete this, and we're gonna center. And that's it. Very, very simple. We are gonna say leave review. We're gonna make this button a little bit wider. We want 50. Pretty good. How about 200? Yeah, that looks better. Let's say medium, maybe bold. Yeah, that looks cool. Yep, and that's it. And now here we can add the option. So we can do it from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they're going to have the rating. Please select, please select a rating, write a review. Let's have that ellipsis there, write a review. And that's pretty much it. And then when they leave the review, it's going to create a new record on the user collection. It's going to be a sub collection that's going to have a field for rating, so like an integer, and the review, which is going to be a string. Now, if you take a look at our document schema, we have reviews falling under places, right? So places is our top level collection, and reviews is a sub collection of places. And that's logical because we want to display the reviews where we are showing something about the place. So on the detail page, we want to work with reviews, and it makes it easier when it's a sub collection of places. And so we're going to go to our schema editor, go to places, create the new sub collection, say reviews. This is going to be a sub collection of places. Click create, and then we can start from scratch. And we are going to have the rating. Rating is an integer. We're going to have the review. The review is the string. And we also might want to have the person who left the review, just in case. Okay, so this is going to be user ref. Doesn't hurt. Document reference. Okay, we're going to save this. And this is our simple schema for the reviews. And let's go ahead and configure this button. So for this drop down, we're going to say input. For the review, we're going to say input review. And then leave review is going to create a document in the reviews sub collection. Heading and action, create document. Collection is going to be reviews. And so here we need the actual reference for the place. And the way this is going to work is that this is going to be a component. And then when we execute it, we're going to send a parameter to this component. So let's go ahead and turn this into a component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this post create, right click, and I'm going to convert to component, and I'm going to call it add review, create component. And now we have this component here. And so now that this is a component here, I'm going to create a parameter. So I'm going to define a parameter. It's going to be called place ref because it needs to be associated with a place. This is going to be a document reference. This is required. And it's going to be places, confirm. Okay, so now once we have this place reference, we can actually work with this action here. Specify that this parameter, and now we can set the fields from the UI. Okay, so for the rating, we're going to put input rating. And for the review, we're going to put input review. Input review, okay? And so now when we click on this button and we're going to pass the, to the component, we're going to pass the reference of the place. And when you click this button, it's going to save everything. And so now we no longer need this page anymore because we already created the component. So we can delete this page. We no longer need this page called review. I'm just going to delete it so it doesn't confuse anything. And if we go to trips, and now we can choose this button, open the flow editor. And so what we want to do is we want to show this bottom sheet. We're going to select this, and this bottom sheet needs a component. So we're going to click select component, and we're going to pick add review. Now we need to pass a parameter. Okay, we need to pass a parameter. So we're going to click here, choose this place ref, and we're going to pick from the places, right? We're going to pick its own reference. Okay, click confirm. And now it knows the review is going to be for which place because the component doesn't know what's happening. Okay. Now, another thing that we need to do is we need to go to our components and we need to make sure that this component is actually going to dismiss itself. So this leave review needs to dismiss itself, right? So we're going to add an action and we're going to do dismiss, bottom sheet dismiss. And it knows what to dismiss. It knows that it's part of its own sheet and it can dismiss itself, okay? So now it's going to dismiss itself. It's going to leave a review. So we have a couple of project issues. Let's see what's going on. Here we need to run our custom functions, recheck them. Should be no issues. All right, let's create a new test environment. All right, so here's the app. If we go to our trips, we can see that we have a trip that we've taken. So if we click on review, we have this thing pop up. Now there's some issues. We're going to fix that in just a second. And here we can pick a rating. So let's say we really liked it, 5. Great apartment, leave a review. Okay, so hopefully it left a review. We're going to check that, but as you can see, it dismissed itself. Now let's go into the database and see if that new record was created. So we are here, we're going to go to the place, and we have reviews here for this apartment, the best apartment to rent in NYC. And we have 1 review. So it was created correctly. We can start using it, but let's go ahead and fix the dialog box. Like if I click review, it's a little too big. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix that real quick. What we need to do is we need to change this, use maximum amount of size, to this, use the minimum amount of size, so that it just uses up what it needs to use without any extra size. Let's go back, let's reload this, and hopefully that should fix it. Okay, scroll down, go to trips, leave a review, and as you can see now it's nice and perfect. And we can leave another review. Let's put, let's say 4. Great place, but we had a few issues. And obviously in production, you wouldn't be able to leave multiple reviews, but here it's just for testing, leave review, close this. Then we can go back here and we have 2 reviews, 4 rating and rating 5. Okay. And now what we need to do is let's go back to the details screen and let's display some of the review information here so that users can see what kind of apartment they are booking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this right here. And so I'm going to drag that below, and maybe here I can display some review information. We're going to go over here and we can load up the reviews on this level because that is pretty much the only place we're going to need it. So we can do a query collection. Reviews, and value source is place ref, just that apartment, not all the reviews, and we can get all the reviews here. And once we got it, now we can work with it, right? So for instance, we can display the number of reviews, we can display the average reviews. So let's just display the number of reviews, just to keep things very, very simple. So for this, right, all we need to do is we can delete this, but if we come in here, we can pick reviews, and for the options, we can just choose number of items, and we can do more, right? So we can copy this variable, we can edit it, we can do combine text, and we can actually, we can do that here. Reviews, number of items, maybe we can put parentheses around it like this, put this. Okay, and that's gonna give you the number of reviews. In this case, 1 review. Now I can reload this. What is that? What is the name? Awesome 1 bedroom. What is that apartment? Awesome 1 bedroom, I think, apartment. Let's go ahead and look it up. Amazing, is it? 0 review. Okay, it's not it. And let's take a look which apartment it is. This is this apartment, the best apartment to rent in NYC. Awesome loft 2 bedroom. This is the one that has reviews. Go back to our app. Awesome. And it says 2 reviews. So there you have it. And obviously you can take it further. You can calculate the average of the reviews by using a custom function or a custom expression. So you can do a lot of interesting things. And you can also list the reviews here if you want. You have that information. You can create a list view and just list the reviews, or you can redirect them to another page, right? So you can have another page, have a list view, just list the reviews there with the ratings and have this act as a navigation. It's gonna navigate to that page. Now, another thing I really want to do is I want to create this map view. This is really, really slick, and I really, really liked it. One of the first times I saw it, this map view here. And as you can see, there's all of these different apartments, and you can actually see the prices as well. So let's go ahead and try to recreate this kind of a map view in FlutterFlow, and let's see what we can do. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I want to create a new page. I don't know if this is going to be a new page or this is going to be a component that's going to pop up, but it doesn't really matter. You can always start with a new page. And if we search for map, there's no map views or anything like that. So we're going to create a blank page, call it map view, create page. And now we have this map view here. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go to this column here and we want to look for some map widgets. So there's a couple of widgets that we have. We have a Google map and we have a static project map. Now let's go ahead and add a Google map view and see what it can do. Okay, so we've just added Google Maps, and it has the number of markers, set whether this map should display a list of markers or a single marker or no marker. We can come here and we can choose multiple markers. The next thing we need to look at this marker type. Is this going to be a document or lat long? So if you hover over, you see set whether to populate these markers from either Firestore documents or lat longs. So if we select lat longs, it wants a list of lat longs, right? If we select Firestore documents, it wants a list of documents. And if you hover over, these documents must include a lat long field. And so in our case, it doesn't really matter which option we pick. It's just which option is going to be more convenient for us. And so what we need to do is we need to look at our database. And if we go into our places, what we need is a lat long on this level. We already have a location, but we also need some lat long. So I'm going to go ahead and get some lat long points and populate them here. So here I have 5 random lat long points in Manhattan. We're going to go ahead and add it to our documents. I'm going to add a field called chords. This is going to be a geo point. So the latitude here is this, and the longitude is this one. We added that. Let's add another one. Geo point. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Okay, so I went ahead and added these coordinates to our 5 places documents, and now we can access these documents here. So I'm gonna go back here, and here I can specify these documents, but first I need to load the documents up. So we're gonna go on the map view, and we're gonna load our documents. I'm gonna do a backend query, query collection, places. So now we have the documents here. Go to the map view. We can specify the places here. We can specify it here, confirm. And what it's saying is the documents must include a lat long field. And we have a lat long field. And the initial location, we want to set it maybe to one of the coordinates, just so that it centers somewhere. This should be somewhere in Manhattan. Okay, there it is. And we have a couple of other settings. But we have a few errors. And so it's telling us Google Map with markers requires a collection to have a lat long field. So we need to go ahead and add it to our schema there. So we're going to say chords, which is a lat long. Come back here. Now Google Maps needs an Android API key, iOS API key. And yeah, so we need to get some API keys. Let's go ahead and take a look where we need to set it up. There's Google Maps, and now we need to give it API keys and a web API key as well. If you click on Docs, you can see that they have instructions how to do that. So we need to enable this for this project. You're going to go to Google Developers Console. You're going to pick this project, and you want to enable this in the API. So we need to select Maps SDK, Android, etc., etc. We're going to enable this. Okay, now it's going to configure our billing account. Okay, so we got our API key here. Okay, we're going to copy this, go to the platform. We're going to go into APIs. We're going to go into credentials, and we have the keys created for us. So we're going to go into show key, copy this key. This is iOS key, paste it in here. This is the Android key, copy it here, paste it here, and the browser key, copy it here, paste it here. Okay, so now let's check our custom functions. Okay, no issues. Now for this thing, for this page, we want to make sure we can get to it. So we want to enable the nav bar. So I'm going to come to the top level. I'm here, enable the nav bar, and let's give it a map icon, something like this. Let's also have the profile last, maybe the map view. Yeah, maybe somewhere after home. And let's go ahead and start a new session. All right, so here's our app, and we also have this new tab for maps. And if we click here, we are seeing the initial point, but if we zoom out, we see various other points. And in fact, we see 5 points of the different places inside of Manhattan. And we can control the zoom, so we can start off with a different zoom level. Scroll down, we can start off with, maybe this is too zoomed out. Actually, this is fine. 10, 11, and you have more settings. You can show the compass, the toolbar, traffic, probably not that important. You know, you can have all of these things. And what's nice is that it looks really good. It looks perfectly for what we're trying to do, right? FlutterFlow gives us the ability to create this map view very, very easily. Now, technically, you can have it display some other way. So if you come in here, let's see, they have this map thing here, and it just takes all of this and displays it in the map view. So it's kind of similar to what we have. It's similar to what we have here, right? So you click this map view and it just flips this, but you click it here and you see the only thing we need to do is maybe, I don't know, list places or something like that. Or what does Airbnb say? It's just the map view. And so it works perfectly right out of the box. You can zoom out. And so now that we have a different zoom level, we can reload this and it should start from a different zoom level, meaning it's going to be more zoomed out. Okay, click here. And now it's zoomed out, maybe zoomed in a little bit. Well, it's really up to you. It's really up to you. And so at this point, we have the map view, we have the basic list view. You can search here, you can, click here, you can book it, you can look at the dates, you can see what's happening, you can go back, you can, remove this filter, you can scroll down, you can look at some of your previous, you can look at some of your favorites, you can log out, you can log in. And so obviously you can customize this further. It's really up to you how far you want to take it, but the foundation is pretty much complete, and it's really up to you to kind of put icing on the cake, so to speak. And so if you're looking to develop this app further, or you're just interested in seeing how this is done, you can easily view and or clone this app and pretty much all my other apps via my Patreon page. And so if you're not yet a member and you're serious about your no-code development, maybe you want to build a career in no-code, you want to make some money in no-code, you want to build, or maybe you want to start your own software company, whatever the case may be, you definitely need to join our amazing Patreon community in order to be able to view and or clone pretty much all the apps that I talked about on this channel, as well as ask questions about any of the apps and get some support as well. And you can learn more about our amazing Patreon community using the link below this video. And so hopefully I will see you inside our community. Now, if you're interested in watching more of these built from scratch application tutorial videos, I'm going to have a link right there where you can watch an entire playlist of some of the other videos where I built an app from scratch.